Yes, for the 7 o'clock meeting?
Nancy, it plans to be here. She may be a little late, something about work. Kaplan and Prasad will not be here. Casey's sick, yes. He won't be here
Casey's
either.
sick.
Yes.
Where's the rest of the gang?
Two or maybes.
2 or maybes?
One's a maybe. So,
We have 5 people.
We have five.
No, barely enough for
Do you wanna go?
another. Okay, are you ready?
yes.
Okay. Announcement is made that adequate notice of this meeting has been given and that is being conducted in accordance with NJSA 10:4-6 et sec of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Nora, please call the roll.
Berkowitz,
Here.
Jaskowitz.
Here.
Reddy,
Present.
Willens,
Here.
Arrakame.
Present.
We also have with us our board attorney, Mr. King, our board planner, Mr. Chadwick, and our board engineer, Mr. Holloway.
Okay, let's start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this point in this evening's meeting, is there any member of the public that has anything to be brought to this board that is not on this evening's agenda? I hear and see none. Right, we're gonna call case application 20:54, Danny Realty. Good evening.
Mr. Chairman. James Turtletab from the law firm, the Turtletab Law Firm, on behalf of the applicant in this matter. And just to bring everybody, you're here back on June 4th. We got through most of the testimony. There was an issue still outstanding, which you had asked us to address, which is the use, which I'm prepared to do tonight. Also, since the last hearing, we've submitted a traffic control drawing, which Mr. Chadwick raised a couple of questions, which we have our traffic engineer, Nicholas Verderisi, here this evening to speak to those questions, if there's any questions about the exhibit itself. But to remind the board, what we're looking to do is take the property, which is at the corner of New Road and Route 46, and redevelop the building on the site with, take that building down, construct a new building, which would house, and I'm here prepared to say tonight, a Dunkin' Donuts operation. We had kind of danced around at the last meeting because there were still some issues to iron out, but I'm here tonight to say we'll commit to a Dunkin' Donuts. If there's a change in use at some point in the future, we'll come back before this board, if the board so chooses. We'll commit to you tonight to a Dunkin' Donuts. Which helps us because the testimony, it helps you understand a little bit more of the application as well, because the testimony has been, especially with the Dunkin' Donuts, that the number of parking, the number of cars typically in the queue, based upon past experiences and data, would be between 8 and 9 cars. This queue has 13 cars. It can do it normally. There's only one menu board. We have 2 menu boards to speed through the process. So clearly, we have overcapacity with respect to the drive-through and the ability to handle the number of cars that will be coming to the site. That being said, since the last meeting, we did provide you a traffic control exhibit, which shows some of the things we discussed at the last meeting. One was adding a do not block the box area at the entrance on New Road. The other was some striping that we put in on the pavement. We can work with the engineer if they want it to be more visible, whatever the case may be. But to help aid the traffic, understanding that, the maneuvers around the city, getting to the drive-through. We have added those there that we think will help and address some of the things we discussed at the last meeting. So I do have Nicholas Verderisi here tonight. We are committed to doing the Dunkin' Donuts. With respect to the questions that were raised by Mr. Chadwick in terms of the drivers being able to understand what they're going to be doing, we think that the site markings that we're going to be putting on the level as well as the signs there will help the traffic maneuver through the site. And we can answer any questions or to bring a summation to where we stand on all of this.
Councilors, before we start, at the last meeting, you were going to limit it to a donut-type facility, not a burger, not a chicken. That's still...
That commitment is here tonight.
Thank
Can be a condition of approval. My client is willing to commit. Yes.
Thank you.
For the record, Ms. Snyder is here. You may proceed.
Let me ask you, was it the remainder of the building, they're taking, what, 400 square feet or a little less?
The entire building will be for the coffee shop use, the Dunkin' Donuts use.
That's not what it said on the plan.
They will be for the entire Dunkin' Donuts use.
Does that mean that
The plan showed 300 and change, almost
For the
400
retail,
square.
I'm sorry, the retail component. There'll be some snacks that will be, not Dunkin' Donuts products, but there will be some shelving for some additional items that are there. If you'd like some testimony, I can bring Mr. Taylor some of that.
Just, Dunkin' Donuts is gonna pair up with some kind of a convenience outlet, or,
Yeah, if I
Yeah.
can, let me call Mr.
Help me out.
Taylor.
Were you sworn last?
I was, John Taylor's dynamic engineer.
And you still understand you're under oath?
Yes, I am.
Thank you.
Just to qualify, that's a breakdown of the patron area, which backs into the parking calculation. The entire building is Dunkin' Donuts and only Dunkin' Donuts. There's no convenience store component at all. It's all Dunkin' Donuts.
so you still need a kitchen area?
It's a kitchen, that's the back of the house, but there's 315 backs into the parking calculation for your ordinance. That's the only reason we broke it out.
there's no seats in the 1,000 square foot left to them.
Correct. No seats.
So what do they do? Have
You can
racks
walk
of
in,
donuts?
it's a seat area where you walk in, a line to order your beverage. Or don't, yeah. That's all. It's only 300, it's fairly small.
I'm not making myself clear. On the plan, you've got 388 square feet, which is the Dunkin' Donuts place, right?
The whole building is Dunkin' Donuts.
Then you have labeled retail, approximately 1,000 square feet. Right?
The plan, the building itself is 1,475 square
Right.
feet, the entire building. There's a small area in the front, which is a patron area, which is the 318 square feet. But the
Okay.
whole building, the 1,100 square foot would be the bathrooms, the kitchen area, the counters where the wait staff is. It's a 1,400 square foot Dunkin' Donuts with no seats.
With no seats. You have no problem
Most
cleaning
Dunkin'
that up.
Donuts don't have
I
kitchen
I think it just,
The only reason we
Are
put that
making
in is
donuts
because of the
there?
way the ordinance reads for parking.
Are they making the donuts there?
Now, this is too small for the donuts.
Well, because it shows the kitchen area, I just wanted, what are they gonna make in the kitchen?
Don't they make us sandwiches?
You make the sandwiches.
Sandwiches in there.
I thought they just throw them, I
Bags.
thought they just pop them in a microwave that's on the counter.
Right.
That's
That's
primarily
kitchen.
what it is. Coffee machines and all that.
Still have to clean it.
Big compartment sink and all that.
Mr. Chairman, now that it's been dedicated to Dunkin' Donuts, I feel much more comfortable with what they're showing on the plans. As far as the queue and the do not block the box, I would like the traffic engineer, we did discuss if it was gonna be a Starbucks or something. We did discuss over the phone, in that situation, we might be thinking about closing off the new road driveway completely and make people just go in off Route 46. Just an exit onto New Road. And with the Dunkin' Donuts coming in, I feel very comfortable that their queues are much smaller from my experience.
Yeah, but that doesn't stop from being a Starbucks at some point, though, does it?
Well, that's what we have to,
We will make that a condition of approval. It's either limited to a Dunkin' at this point in time, or if you want to exclude a Starbucks as being used, we're happy to do that. Right now, the plan is for Dunkin' Donuts to be in this site.
Okay.
We understand the board's concerns, and that's why we're trying to narrow the issue. We're asking you for variance, so the least we can do in return is try to make it as narrow of a scope of a use as we can. and that's what we're doing.
So I'm unclear about this, so, so what you're proposing is that all entrance comes from 46 and just the exodus comes?
No.
No, that's what he
that was
was,
something we discussed, if it was
If it was
going
a
to be something
Starbucks.
like a Starbucks, and we had to worry about the
Okay,
queue.
got it, but if it's
Because
Dunkin'
they're
Donuts, anything goes.
Because they're designated
Okay,
Dunkin'
got
Donuts.
it, all right.
no complaints?
You can proceed with your witnesses.
Okay, with the previous sworn as well.
Good evening. I'm just going to explain a little bit about some of the striping and signing modifications that we proposed. So I'm just gonna use a regular exhibit and kind of walk you through what we added, from the last meeting, from some of the discussions. So when someone enters off of 46, what we were trying to do, we're changing this arrow to be a right turn arrow, kind of guiding the people for the drive-through, so it says drive-through with a right turn arrow. We want to guide them around the canopy so they're pointing straight into the drive-through, as opposed to having them come essentially directly and then have to make the left across the people entering. So we felt that that was a nice longer area. It doesn't impact the parking and the activity at the canopy. Additionally, we added some identification signs for the drive-through, one on each side, as well as some signage that is supplemented by a do not block the box area in the entrance. What that's going to help alleviate is when someone comes off of 46, if for some reason, this was the Cadillac of Dunkin' Donuts and everyone wanted to come here, the Mecca of Dunkin' Donuts, and there was an extra car stacked that came from the north side, we didn't want them sitting in the driveway's throat. So by putting that do not block the box, that'll help alleviate that with some supplemental signage as well. Again, that was all above and beyond what we had presented at the last meeting.
Any questions on it?
I think we also had a little discussion at the last meeting about the canopy is not being moved at all. Is that correct?
It is being moved, yes.
Okay, there was discussion about moving it down a bit more. Is that depicted in this final drawing? Because I don't see that. Or am I missing that?
I'd have to look at the survey to see. Maybe John can help me out.
That would alleviate that other problem you're talking about right now, right? Because
Well,
right now the canopy, it would be tough to turn right and off of 46 and make that swing around. So
Yeah, it's actually is pushed down, so there's let me get the dimension for you.
Thank you.
There is 30, it's labeled, that might be the setback, so about 35 foot. So the aisle at this corner of the canopy is about 35 feet wide, so someone that came in has a really large swing area to come in that direction. So yes, it is pushed down about almost 40 feet, actually more than 40 feet from the highway. So there's a big area there.
And how tall is the canopy again?
I guess 13.6, I think, usually on the underside, a little more. But it meets, whatever highway standards for tractor trailers, if one had to drive under the corner of it. It meets all the normal canopy sizes.
I think the Township Fire Department wants that 14 clear on the...
Yeah, it probably is. I know on the highways, we do a minimum of 13.6. Some canopies, we do 14, some 14.6.
You make it subject to the fire department.
It's fine. Whatever they'd like, we're happy to make the canopy that height.
So to clarify for me, the only thing that was a sticking point for me was the objector that was here that day was concerned that the queue would back onto New Road and impede the exit from their strip mall.
Next.
So that was with 13 cars? Is that what it
So
was?
we can fit 14 in here inside, and
Before
then if it started to stack out, we'd have, say, a 15th in the aisle, the 16th, maybe the rear of it was in the road, 17, 18, we'd almost be to about the 19th vehicle. And that would be if everyone came from New Road.
Right.
It's going to split, about 50-50, so some of
So
them are
you
going to be on
smoothed it
40.
out, so that really, you're saying the average queue is 9?
Normally 9
Okay.
For Dunkin', yes.
So to that point, we're back to my original questions in previous sessions around the Dunkin' Donuts in East Hanover that is near the proximity of 325 Route 10 eastbound side. So in this scenario, there's no breakdown lane. In that scenario, there is somewhat of a breakdown lane. I don't even know if it's a designated breakdown lane, but nonetheless, it's a lane where the excess traffic can queue up. And then in addition to that, if I'm not mistaken, the configuration of that Dunkin' Donuts is pretty similar to, I guess, what's proposed here, as you stated, meaning a confined area, no seats, no chance to sit and dine. I guess all the walk-in traffic is just going to be standing traffic, getting their coffee and getting their stuff and leaving. And so in regards to that queue on Route 10, it bleeds into that breakdown lane, and it's more than what you're representing here.
Yeah, so I looked at that, I remember at the meeting, you mentioned it, so I went quick on my phone to check it on Google. So that's a single lane, drive-through, so they don't have two order boards. So they're technically, because there's two drive-through lanes here, there is kind of a breakdown lane, I guess, interior, because if you're in the left lane, you broke down for some reason, the cars can continue using the order board on the right side, in this facility. I looked at Hanover, I'm pretty sure it had only about a 10-car stack before it was out on the road, and that was a single order, board. We have about 14 in here, so to get to the road, you're looking at, 16 or 17 to get out there.
Okay, and so to the Dunkin' Donuts that's less than 900 feet west of this, are you familiar with like the dynamics of the parking and the morning drive traffic and the obedience or lack thereof regarding striping and parking and double parking?
I don't know the site specifically and how they're parked there, but I know it's just a walk-in facility, so it's a little bit different, well, a lot different than this facility. So you'll have the option to use the drive-through or the parking here, if needed. So if that one's spilling over and they're getting more than the parking is what I think I'm hearing from you, those people are more like normally we get probably upwards of 70% of the customers go through the drive-through, so you're only going to get about 30% here.
So that reference to the west, to the one 900 feet west of this particular facility is referencing more of the obedience of the intended striping and everything else. So what is the adherence to, the ratio of adherence among customers when you stripe these types of sites?
We find the vast majority do obey the striping.
What's that?
I don't.
Your professional guesstimation.
empirical, but I can guess over 90% of the people are obeying. But yeah, but if you get, you get that one person that doesn't, you're going to notice it because, the one person that ignores it.
That's it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions by the board?
There's not going to be any stools or ledges or anything in, relationship to no seats, but there's not going to be anything like that
No, it's
either.
just a grab and go.
I have two questions. The traffic coming eastbound on 46 turns in this driveway. Should we have a sign on 46 telling them that they turn right?
No extra signage. We have the arrow on the pavement that has the right turn arrow.
I'm coming
we
in and
drive
I'm
through.
looking around the parking lot. Am I gonna look down at the pavement?
Yeah, the truth of the matter is,
I'm gonna come right around that corner.
about 90% of their customers are the same people that are coming
Well,
into
that's
their
what
stores.
I-
So they all know, hey, I come in, I'm going to the right, there's a 10%. And yeah, if you get 10% of the people that came in, so if you had, 25 in the hour and 3 of them went straight,
We're killing this. Is there a reason you wouldn't want to put a sign there?
I can add a sign. I personally think it's overkill, but
All right.
we can add a sign if you,
The other,
Right.
the other thing is the box. Assume you're wrong and that the stacking area is filled. The car's gonna be stopped with its tail sticking out into that lane on New Road or not?
no.
Okay.
How do you figure that? How do you figure that it's not going to be sticking out in that far right lane where the majority of traffic is trying to make or navigate that right-hand turn coming from New Road to 46?
Because there's about 30 feet from the drive-through lane to the road.
Okay.
Any other questions by the board?
Are we trying to prevent anybody making a left turn off a new road into that property?
We are adding a sign that's
I know
not
there's-
currently
I know
there.
there's 4 or even 6 lanes there, but
There are.
some crazy people out there.
Yeah, there's,
gotta be real crazy.
yeah. It's funny, we did traffic counts and no one actually made the turn during peak hours. Interesting. You maybe at 10 o'clock at night, I might make that, attempt, but no.
Well, is the turn in a 90-degree turn, or is it?
Yeah, 90 degrees. Yeah, you turn, if you were illegally turning left, yeah.
That's a backtrack. So if you're coming off a new road, going north, making a 90-degree turn into, and then you gotta turn another 90
You
degrees.
do, you do, but if
into
there's,
the lane.
we ran all the templates and it works fine for the 19-foot long vehicle, which covers the larger pickup trucks.
Any other questions? It does not appear as any of the members of the public here, so we'll go to the next witness. Unless Mr. McDonough has a question.
I think those would be the only witnesses that we would have then for this evening.
That's it. Okay, for the record, there are no members of the public here, so I will not ask for comments. Motion to go into conference?
So moved.
Second, Snyder.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I would just like to state for the record, we only have 6 members here, and you're entitled to 7. Now, you can hear what the conference says tonight, and you can then ask to carry the case if you don't like what you hear.
That's a very
I'll
generous
give you
offer.
that, I'll give you that option.
I will take that option. It's a very generous option, thank you.
We try to be as generous as possible. My generosity is only exceeded by my handsomeness.
No comment.
Carry on, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, who wants to start?
I guess I will. I like it. I think, it's a good spot for it. I think you addressed the main concern of the traffic coming out on New Road. Makes sense to me, so I'm gonna be in favor of it.
Okay, I'll go next. I'm not in favor of it. I see this as backing up well into New Road, despite the 2 lanes as opposed to the one, as they compared to, the East Hanover, site. In addition to that, we have a Dunkin' Donuts less than 900 feet away on the westbound, on the eastbound side of 46 west of this respective property. And I just see this as intensifying this already intensified intersection, and I, from a traffic perspective, I don't see this as being safe. And again, I see that long line, and I don't, with all due respect to the testimony, I respectfully disagree in regards to the adherence with the striping that will further cause the log jam of traffic coming down New Road onto the site. And of course, there's always the concern of those crazy drivers, as Mr. Berkowitz labeled, who are desperate for that, I guess, the Dunkin' versus the Wawa, to totally ignore any signage or, traffic dangers as it relates to pulling into that lot. So I'll be voting against it.
Can I ask Ms. Steiner a question?
Mhm.
So don't you think, being that there's another Dunkin' Donuts in this, one of the traffic patterns, that would decrease the likelihood of there being an issue? You don't think so?
No, I don't.
I think practically what's gonna happen if this place opens, is that one's gonna close, like the business.
Yeah, could be.
Maybe.
But in addition to that, no, to your question, no, because my concern is actually log jamming that already congested intersection. And, we are dealing, like I actually, travel there on multiple, different day parts in a day. And it is clogged. It's not a morning versus afternoon drive type of thing. And then, of course, when people return to work, that's a whole different dynamic that we really don't have current research on. Now, the experts have provided guidance in regards to what that traffic flow is going to be, but it will clog that area. And we've already approved projects, regardless, Starbucks, and there are already Dunkin' Donuts out there where it does spill over. And, maybe the East Hanover is not the best direct comparison, meaning they're one lane and this is two lanes, but you build and they will come, and they will come, and they will congest, that area. There's a great potential of making that intersection even more congested. I just don't, and with the Dunkin' Donuts just less than 900 feet away on the westbound side, and of course Wawa down New Road, I see this as a traffic hazard. I'll be voting against it.
Thank you, Ms. Schneider. Mr. Berkowitz, would you like to go next?
Sure. Generally, I'm very, I don't know if liberal is the right word, but I think people should be able to develop the property the way they want to, so long as it's not a detriment to either its neighbors or the town. Here, I just think I agree with everything that Ms. Snyder said. I'm going to be voting against it. In addition, I just thought in my head with somebody going south on New Road, making a left turn onto 46, is then have to cross a lane to get into the driveway to pull in. I can't imagine that that's not going to cause problems during a busy traffic time. I'm going to be voting against it.
Mr. Willens?
Obviously, we have concern about the congestion area. What I'm not clear on, don't recall, is the current level of traffic visiting this existing business site, okay? Versus what the Dunkin' Donut would be. So we've had testimony about what the Dunkin' Donut traffic may look like. Do we have any testimony as it pertains to the amount of increase in traffic that will be in and out of that site during the rush hour mornings? And I don't, if you've said that, I'm sorry I didn't record it, but that would be a concern, because from my standpoint, you've done a good job presenting your traffic flows, the number of cars and whatever, and alleviating the stacking problem by putting two drive-through boards. Okay, I think you've addressed that very nicely. Moving the canopy down addresses another concern I had. At the same time, I don't think that there's going to be that much dramatic increase in traffic because you put the Dunkin' Donuts in versus what's already there. And if you had some testimony that could validate that for me, I would be a lot more strongly in favor of this application, but I haven't heard that testimony, so.
So you're a yes or no, or maybe you want more information?
I'm a yes at this point, but I would like to have a little more information on that if possible.
Okay.
Okay.
Who am I missing? Mr. Reddy?
Yeah, the applicant made a very good improvements on moving the canopy inside and making the good amount of space coming in inside into the from 46, as well as they addressed the traffic flow. And main concern was the neighbor. They were objecting that they from the neighboring place they may block their traffic, but the testimony provided today, I'm very happy that there is enough space, like 15, 16 cars behind the, and so it's a very good improvements. So like a business versus, these things, I'm in favor of this.
Thank you, Mr. Reddy. I'm just going to interject some information that I heard just the other day. Somebody asked me something, and it turns out the property's in Montville. Wawa's building a major facility just east of the property on the westbound side. They're taking over the old Supa's restaurant, that whole corner.
Corner of Bloomfield Avenue and Changers Road.
Good, bad, or indifferent for this application, I don't know. First of all, I'm sure you're going to ask Carrie this, right? Okay.
I will.
All right. So I'm going to tell you my thought at this point. I am squarely on the fence. I have a lot of reservations, but on the other hand, I don't think this particular property will this particular application will significantly add to be a detriment to that intersection. Intersection sucks. I mean, once again, if the state had been smart, they would have taken that property and put a right-hand jug handle And then everybody would have been happy. That's what, and because that was a closed gas station when the thing was improved, that was a closed gas station. Once again, just like they did up here on Cherry Hill Road, they allowed a piece of property to get away and create havoc for us. I'm clearly on the fence. The information that Mr. Willens now presents that he'd like to see is interesting, and that may push me towards the affirmative. So maybe if you want to come back and reiterate that particular part of the, where we're at with increased, I think that's very important.
I would like to have that opportunity. If the board is inclined to reopen the record to be able to answer Mr. Willen's questions, I was going to offer that regardless.
We try to be very accommodating, as much as I possibly can. And I know you hearing this now gives you an idea of what you need to do.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right, so, motion to come out of conference?
So moved.
So you're asking us to carry this case without further notice and with whatever extensions are required?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I'll write a letter, make sure that I get a letter out to him, to give an extension to the October
And he's
meeting.
also asking to reopen it.
Asking to reopen the case. And our lovely, secretary is now going to go into her magical book. Put a magic wand on the calendar and come up with a date,
How much
right?
time do you need?
I would say-
This year and next year.
Well, can we do another half hour?
I was gonna say, another half an hour, hopefully will get us through it. The testimony that I understand we need to provide you is the existing and the differential, which we'll provide you, and then if there's any other questions that we can resolve, we'll certainly do that at that time.
This is a table with support narrative, correct?
Yeah.
So the table will get here sometime before the meeting night, like 10 days before.
The table, I believe, is already in the traffic reports that are provided, but we haven't given testimony that possibly to some of.
That table showing the added,
Yeah, we'll have it well in advance of the next meeting,
Okay.
but 10 days at least before the next meeting, but I believe it's already in the material.
Traffic reports are tough to read.
But I will-
Sure cure for insomnia.
If the board would be acceptable to the board, since we have a focus as to what the board has asked for, I would be happy to have that information taken out of the reports and put into a
Yes.
separate document we will
Great.
submit more than 10 days before.
Great.
So that way you don't have to figure out where it is. I'll
So
give it
that
to
we
you.
can get it emailed to us.
Okay.
So Nora, can we do a half hour before another meeting by any chance?
We
Not
have
unless we
half hour.
can get 7 people. I mean, maybe that's shooting ourselves in the foot. Let's just go with it.
We're booked with half-hour special meetings from now through October 20th.
Okay.
Maybe, why don't we try, can we put them on September 29th? Can we try sticking you on there? A regular meeting, 7:30. If you only need half an hour, I don't see why.
Yeah,
that
do
wouldn't
7,
work.
what was the date?
September 29th.
9/29. That's gonna be the regular meeting.
Very good. I confirmed with my experts, I believe there's 2 out of 3 left. We have Mr. Verderisi, he's going to be the only one I anticipate that's what he's built.
Okay, motion to carry 20:54 Danny Realty to September 29th without notice and with, acceptable, extension. Moved by Mr. Willen, second by?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Jaskowitz. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we'll see you on the 29th.
Mr. Chairman and board members, I do appreciate your indulgence in all of this, coming in early tonight for us, and look forward to seeing you on the 20th. Thank you.
Thank you, no problem. I guess we can call the next meeting. All right, do I have a motion to adjourn the special meeting?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, so we have gone through that. Now we go to, you ready to do the next meeting?
Yep.
Nora, or do you
One
need some time?
second.
You ready?
Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much ready here.
The announcement is made that adequate notice of this meeting has been given that it is being conducted in accordance with NJSA 10:4-6 at second, the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act. Please call the roll, Nora.
Berkowitz,
Here.
Jaskowitz.
Yep.
Ready,
Present.
Snyder. Here. Willens.
Here.
Ira Kane. We
Present.
also have our board attorney, Mr. King, our board planner, Mr. Chadwick, and our board engineer, Mr. Holloway.
President.
All right, we did the Pledge of Allegiance at the first meeting, so we'll dispense with that. Is there any member of the public that has any business to be brought to this board that is not on this evening's agenda? Hear none, see none. The resolutions can be done by Berkowitz, Jaskowitz, Kaplan, Parikh, Reddy, and Willens. Mr. Willens, would you like to move 21, 26, 21, 27, 28, 39, 03, 53, 26, 16, 18?
Mr. Chairman, I so move.
Is there a second? Second by Mr. Reddy. Any discussion? Nora, call the roll on that?
Berkowitz,
Yes.
Jaskowitz.
Yes.
Kaplan. Ready,
Yes.
Willens.
Yes.
Okay, that was quick. Resolutions are done. We now have application 2111, Richard Fazzolari. Come on up. Come on up at the table.
Are both of you going to provide testimony? Could you raise your right hand, sir?
That was quick.
Do you swear affirm the testimony you're about to give before the board is true, so help you God? And for the record, can you state your name?
Richard Fazzolari Jr.
And you're the owner of the subject property, 12 Fox Run?
Yes.
I thank you. You're sworn. You may sit down, please.
No, right here. You're a better man than me, because my wife will be right next to me, because
If she does
She wouldn't let
recognize,
me-
she can't talk
What's-
now, right?
Okay, you want to construct a pool deck. All right, so why don't you tell us about, I guess you have a pool, is that correct?
Yeah, we have an above ground,
Above ground.
that's already in place. We just want to put a deck around it. I think it's about 120 foot deep, so that we can sit up there and keep an eye on our kids and not be 50 feet away from them on our regular deck so we can see in.
We had one in the old days when my kids were young. We had the deck coming out of the house,
Yeah.
out of the back of the house, and the pool was
Right
right
onto it.
off. It was like having an in-ground pool.
Yeah.
My wife could stand in the kitchen, and it was fantastic. It was a
Yeah.
great concept.
We wanted to do that as well, but the sun was in the other corner,
Oh, okay.
so we kind of.
All right, so you're looking for de minimis,
What drives is the included the pool in the impervious coverage.
that's correct.
Without that,
I
it
would-
would be.
I'm getting to that. First of all, your requests are de minimis. You're talking about a little more than 1% on the yards and courts open deck, and your impervious coverage, you're asking for 1.2. The interesting thing is, your pool, we have to classify as impervious coverage. Now, a pool is a water collector, it's not impervious coverage. So unfortunately, you're over the thing because of that. And that's all you're asking for. No side yard, no rear yard, your pool's already there?
Yep.
You have no complaints from your neighbors that you're partying too much?
No.
Alcohol at a minimum?
I'll take the step on that one.
Okay. Any questions by the board?
None.
Okay. Any members of the public have any questions of this witness on the testimony given? I hear none and see none. There's nothing else you'd like to hear. This is quick, isn't it?
All good.
Are any members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to this application, in support of this application? I hear none and see none. Someone like to make a comment?
Mr. Chairman?
Oh, yes, sir.
I just wanted to point out there was a engineering office letter,
I
and
did
it
not
talked about possible, building on the easement, and they wanted a letter to, confirm that it was not on the easement. There was 3 comments made by the Division of
Why
Engineering.
don't I have that?
Why don't we have that?
Yeah, I don't have it.
Only you have that?
I don't have the letter.
June 25th,
Are you-
2021,
No,
Richard.
it's not our packet.
Do you have that letter?
We got it.
Okay, now you can't talk unless you get sworn in, so I told you, I told you, you didn't pay attention, okay. So do you understand what the letter says? You need-
Basically, it said, if we have any water problems, we will rectify it with.
No, that's not it, that's not what he's saying.
It says that you're relatively flat, you have to make sure you're not gonna, with the neighbors, not gonna cause any problems.
Yeah.
But also says that, because we're just working off a sketch, and there's shown on the plans that the plans, there's some easements there. And we don't know where you are relative to the easement.
Yeah.
So we would need confirmation in the letter to the engineering office regarding,
Well, they would need to agree to take it down if it was in the
They don't,
easement.
so they don't want you, you can't build on an easement, okay? So you would comply with all the requirements of the town's engineering letter, and you understand that if you do any construction on that easement, that you'd have to take that down. So it benefits you to make sure you know where that easement is and not.
yeah, they're looking
put
for
your
that
deck on
and/or an affidavit if there is something to be worked out.
Okay, so we're gonna make that part of the resolution. It's just a little additional, okay? This is the minimum, we don't need to have a statement. This is the very de minimis request. Someone frame a resolution so we can move on?
Application 21:11, Richard Fazol, 12 Parks Run, Block 98, Lot 10.30, Zone R-3 to issue or grant C variance to construct a pool deck contrary to Section 430-10I and Section 430-35, Column 13, in compliance, applicant agreed to be in compliance with the engineering report.
Second, Snyder.
Second, Snyder, any discussion? Nora, call the roll?
Berkowitz,
Yes.
Jaskowitz.
Yes.
Ready,
Yes.
Snyder,
Yes.
Willen.
Yes.
Ira Kane.
Yes. Result is the variance is granted, and I'm just gonna give you one little caveat. This will be memorialized on our first meeting in August, which is August 11th. At that point, you'll be able to get your papers in, and you can proceed with your building permits or whatever else you need.
Okay.
Okay? Enjoy,
Thank you very much.
okay?
All right, appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you. Okay. What are these, new papers up there? Okay, this is application 2121, Patel, 27 Adelphi Road. This is a continued hearing from June 23rd. Is the applicant here? Please come forward. Now, for the board, I've asked Mr. Holloway to go through the town memos and kind of give us an overview of what everything is being said, okay?
Yeah.
So that we can get a better understanding. You can
Sam,
sit down.
are you gonna provide testimony?
They're sworn already.
Okay, you're sworn?
You were both here last time, right?
Yeah.
Okay, you may sit down.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, basically, we have a memo from the construction official that talks about the construction code
You can sit in
definition
those chairs, folks, if you like.
of a third story versus what a ordinance might refer to as a third story. In some of my towns, the third story, if there's the stairs that lead to, permanent stairs that lead to the top floor, and if it's habitable, that can be considered by ordinance to be a third story. If it was something where it was a storage area and it had a non-permanent stair to it, that would certainly be called an attic in that situation. So basically, what the construction code official is saying, that based on the construction code, this habitable attic is of sufficient or small enough in size that it would be technically a habitable attic, but it would not be a third story. So there was a little bit of conflict there, and that's been for forever on the definition of a third story versus an attic. This has come up in plenty of towns that I've represented. This is an age-old question and problem. It has to be pretty much made consistent by each town on how they're going to address it.
But is it a conflict between the zoning department and the building department?
It's a gray area. It's the best way I can describe
Chaz
it.
and I live in the same world. I think the way most towns have resolved it, if you've got habitable space on a third floor and you permit 2 stories in the zone, you need a variance. It's a bulk variance, it's not a use variance. The building code, they've even cut back on the definition and the description over the years and made it even more, but that's a building code. It has nothing to do with zoning. Zoning's a different statute. So
And we're here dealing with the zoning. not-
You're
not
here
the
dealing with the
building code.
zoning. And there's nothing about 1/3, 50%, any of that in the zoning. You allow in this zone, two-story structures.
We do not allow three-story structures, correct?
Correct. Or 2.5. And that confuses things, but from a zoning standpoint, this is another floor, smaller, but another floor.
So in terms of the building code, there's
They
no,
comply.
there's no harm, no foul, but in terms of the zoning code,
They need a bulk variance.
they need a bulk variance. Okay, that's one issue. And then we have, Chaz, we have this whole issue of drainage and roof leaders and everything here. Do you wanna?
Right, there was something,
That's more my court, yes, anything to Vizio, the engineer.
right, because you read the memo that talks about the, not tying into the storm inlet, I imagine in front of the property,
Yes.
and it's just a very standard, if there's a property that's in question or an application, if there's a storm inlet anywhere near the front of the property, we always, ask for the direct tie-in to that inlet versus just kind of skirting the water off to the, street.
Right, yeah, I saw that memo, I believe it was from July 21st, from Justin Lisa. That's correct?
Yes.
Township engineer, right. So, I met on site with the contractor and with Brandon from the Township Engineering Division last Thursday, to go over this. Because we're, topographically, now that we actually have topography on the plan, we're looking at two issues that we're battling. One of which you have a 1 to 3% slope back away from the street, and the other one, we have the hill, obviously, going down as you travel along the street. Facing the house from the street, the left side, there's no way by gravity to get that into the yard drain that's on the uphill side. I spoke with Brandon about this in detail. What we tied into to discharge into the street was a pre-existing roof leader discharge. And the prior roof on the previously existing structure was tied into that. On the right side of the property, where the yard drain is located, again, grading issues due to the back pitch away from the street, I can get the front leader into that drain, and that's reflected on the newer plan. And you guys have to excuse, please, the changes, like, my plan largely reflects as-built conditions, so every time I've gone back out there, I have to update it with what's already been constructed. Having topography now on the plan, which was never on any of the prior approved plans, that back pitch away from the street is prohibitive from getting that right rear roof leader into that yard drain. I have inverts listed and everything. In order to do that, I mean, if you compare the numbers to have a 4-inch PVC pipe coming off that back right corner with even a nominal amount of cover over it, your invert there is lower than the 15-inch RCP cross drain coming out of the inlet of the street.
Okay, you just lost me.
Sorry.
It's,
Sorry,
basically,
right, so the
basically, water flows downhill is what we're
Well,
trying.
that I understand,
Yeah.
that's the way,
Right.
but can you do like a dry well or anything there, or not? Or it's not?
I think at that point in time, with the limited space, we're not going to get what your standard spacing should be away from the dwelling. So we're going to be putting it back into the ground, and the sump pumps.
And the sump pumps, yeah, I've been there.
Yeah, you're cycling,
Wonderful,
Back
the
and
wonderful
forth, so-
topography of this town and the dirt,
right,
it's all clay.
yeah. And it's really, yeah, it's the right rear corner, basically, we don't have pitch to get that into the drain. Where I was going with this was, I did see the memo from Mr. Lisa from the 21st. I met with Brandon last Thursday, probably a couple of days after that memo was issued. Went over the topics that I just discussed with him. He brought that back to Mr. Lisa, and he left me a voicemail to the effect that your township engineer is okay with the discharge on the left side of the property through the pre-existing leader discharge coming out the curb facing to the street. His comment that he did have was that he wanted the sump pump tied into that drain. Now that being under
That's what we were
pressure-
discussing. We didn't know last time we met that the sump pump we thought on the plans was really tied into the drain, but I was told it was going out to the back.
Right, and so, again, like you can see on the most recent plan now, there was a stone sump basically constructed in the backyard that the sump pump is discharging into. Mr. Lisa thought it would be a better design, and I would concur also to get that water out. Because, when you're pumping the sump pump out, even if it spills out onto the yard, it goes back in the ground, it's a vicious cycle. That's fine, they would have to reroute that through the inside of the building and come out the right side as you're facing the street. That they can make it into the drain, again, being pressure flow, is no problem. We're not-
Right, so that line would tie into the inlet.
Yeah. So the left side of the house, we're basically using a pre-existing connection. The leaders were going out to the street before, they're going out again. I asked Brandon to have Mr. Leza issue the board a memo in time. I guess it was not received. Obviously, you're taking my testimony, that'll be documented in some kind of memorandum from their department.
Well, you're testifying on the road, so I believe you.
Okay, thank you. I think I probably even still got it on a voicemail too, so. I mean, again, post-construction versus pre-construction conditions, if you look at the zoning table, we're talking about a difference of maybe 100 square feet, just under impervious coverage. I believe the flows are very, very close to what they were before any construction took place. That rear right corner of the building that would spill out into the yard, it's on the uphill side of the property. It's got the complete width of the property to flow out, disperse, soak into the ground. I don't foresee any problems if the board.
So we don't need any drainage appurtenances in the rear yard?
Nothing. Left side of the house goes out to the curb, right front goes into the yard drain and goes directly to the inlet in the street. And right rear would have a splash block, spill out and disperse into the yard.
Mr. Chairman, it seems like a reasonable way of handling it. Yes, I would like to have confirmation that the township agrees with that. And it's certainly not
We'll make it
the
subject-
ideal.
We'll make it subject to.
Right. It's not the ideal situation, but seems like it's practical.
You okay? You're not okay.
I'm not talking about drainage.
Oh, what are you not talking about? What are you talking about?
Can we, the last plan that's submitted on this is dated 7/13?
Correct. Yep, I have a copy here.
The building coverage.
Mhm.
Do you discount a shed? Where is that shed?
No, I have no shed count in the calculations. The numbers are true measure.
What is 100% square foot shed still allowed, not counted as building coverage?
I believe in the code, it states that in excess of the building coverage, you can have a shed up to 100 square feet. But there is no
Say
shed. so
that again? There's no exemption.
All right.
You can go get a shed without a building permit.
All right, that was a copy over note from a prior plan. There is no shed anyway, so
Okay.
it's a non-issue.
The Joe, and I just, okay. How big is this house?
Dwelling is 1,722 square feet.
One
Footprint.
floor or all floors?
Footprint.
Okay, so how big is the house?
You talking complete floor area?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll defer to the architect on that.
I'll have to, see if I have it handy.
How could you not have that handy? I'm sorry, with all due respect, because I got a lot more questions too.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Gross area.
No, please, no. I just, it's just that through this whole hearing,
Second floor plan, they're all here.
Right, we have the first floor,
They're all-
second floor
they're all here.
area, and habitable attic, so I.
Habitable attic, yeah.
And basement.
It looks like the basement is intended as full occupancy as well.
Could you give me a moment to just flip through and make sure, refer to my.
Sure.
We got them house.
Where I have it somewhere.
It's way over. 50%. Look at the basement. The bathroom all over the place.
They need evidence of this.
Basement we can remove.
1722.
Remove that.
Footprint.
Then that becomes non-livable. Yes.
So we have 1722 in the first floor, 1387 on the second floor, and 452 as the habitable area in the attic.
Okay.
So I can just total those up. I'm not including the basement for now. I'll come back and add that if you want me to.
Maybe you can explain it before we try to figure out what it is.
I'm coming up with 4122 for the first, second, and third floor.
Okay. 4122?
Does that include the basement?
No. Maybe you could then explain to the board the various options in that basement, how that works.
I have to apologize, I left my easel somewhere, but I could hold this up. I have the plans mounted here. If we need to refer to them, I can just hold them up and,
We have one.
Don't we have an easel?
I'm sorry, you're familiar with it. You should have some of them in.
I have the plans
We
here.
have the plans here.
You have them, right?
I think so.
So basically, the basement is an unfinished space, but it is designed to be finished. We use the Superior wall system, which is a metal frame system. Let me just go to A1 here. Essentially, it's a full basement except for where the garage is, with a permanent stair down in the front. And then we also have the outside stair in the rear. And it's a metal framed, pre-insulated panel system. I think your Superior wall system, which is a foundation, a prefabricated foundation system. It's good for people who might want to finish a basement in the future. So we have that system, and it's, we also have provided rough-in for a future bathroom in the basement. So we have it stubbed out, so we wouldn't have to break the slab open. And for laundry also, if they choose to put a laundry down there. Otherwise, it's...
What's behind that you're pointing to? It almost looks like you have another bathroom.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll see something ghosted from above, but we have a bathroom right above, and it's just for the plumber's sake. But no, there's only one bathroom proposed in the basement, and that was there in 2014 when we got the original approval.
Okay.
But the plan was see future bathroom rough in now, okay?
Right.
And then we have future bathroom rough in for some other area. So
This one is on the second floor.
oh, okay, that's what it said.
And, yeah, the ghosting shouldn't be there, actually, that one.
Sometimes you'll see,
Yeah, it helps with construction.
So in theory, there could be inhabitants on 4 levels of this home?
Yes.
We are thinking that, there's nothing wrong with having a full bathroom on every level, but there's,
So the answer is yes to that?
yes, if that's what you mean, a bathroom on each level, yes.
Half a bathroom in the basement if you have to take a pee, but I don't see a shower down there being a necessity. Absolutely not.
Well, it's something
And
that,
that's something you might want to consider if you want an approval.
we could talk to the owners about it and see if, they're willing to yield it.
What,
I think part of basement purpose is also sort of as a mudroom. The house doesn't really have a mudroom where someone can come in dirty and take off dirty boots and rinse them off, and things like that. Maybe even take a shower, like a worker who's been sweating or whatever, doesn't want to come into their main house until they're...
Is it a walkout basement?
Hmm?
Is this walkout?
Yes.
Yes, there's a walkout. So they could come in and take a shower and put the dirty clothes someplace and be able to get ready before going upstairs.
No shower in the basement. Any questions by the board at this point?
I do.
Did you want to say something? Did you want to say something about that topic?
May I come up?
Is she under oath?
She was under oath last
Okay.
time.
Just identify yourself for the...
I'm Sonata Shah, I'm their daughter. So basically, the only people that would be living there are my parents and me, myself. So right now I live with my sister, so that's one of the reasons, but we're okay. And I speak with my parents as well, we're okay with not having the bathroom downstairs, if that's what it takes.
So you say there's only you and your parents living in what's going to be 4 floors of occupied?
Well, right now, probably my sister too, because she's living with her in-laws.
It just sounds like there's the capacity to have a lot of people or a lot of families in this home.
I mean, yeah, so I mean, we have people traveling from India to come see us and stuff, so it's just extra space, but in no shape or form is it for more families to live there. I can testify to that for sure.
You mean basically to accommodate the guests, guests?
Do you know how many bedrooms are in this building?
4?
I couldn't,
4 plus the one
Don't
upstairs.
say call it a 4-bedroom.
4 bedrooms plus the one
Exactly.
upstairs.
We're not counting the attic as a bedroom or the basement.
you don't count the attic as a bedroom?
Attic and basement do not have what we would call bedrooms, but they have been designed.
Okay.
It's set up
Good
like
day.
that,
All right.
but
We
it's
just
set
said
up
that
like
we're-
that.
It looks like a cow.
It's set up
When
like
it
that.
moves, it's a cow.
Yeah, it's set up like that. You could pretend not to call it anything you
Well,
don't want to call it.
The thing to remember is, I know what you're saying. Some people might try to create a bedroom where there shouldn't be a bedroom, but in this case, the only way to get to the attic is through the bedrooms, through the front bedrooms of the house. You can't go up there any other way through a public hallway. So it's meant as a bonus room for these 2 bedrooms, or if they have a close family member that maybe wants to go up that way, but it's not any marketable or identifiable bedroom.
But the basement
In the
is.
basement,
The basement has its own entry.
You know, I hate to say it, but I've been doing this for 31 years, and I've never heard more double talking
Mhm.
from an applicant than you guys.
Thank
Really,
you.
I'm sorry. I'm gonna be very blunt. Very, very blunt. You got 5
That's
bedrooms.
just what we designed
Fine,
from the beginning.
fine. That's,
No, I agree with the chairman. I mentioned in the last meeting, the facts fluctuate like crazy on this application. I also have another question though. Is it true that despite the fact that this house sits at the lower grade part of that whole street configuration, that it actually is taller than all of the houses on that road? That's a yes or no question.
I haven't looked at all, I know what you're saying. In Parsippany, Lake Parsippany, you don't have a lot of houses.
I'm just talking about Adelphia Road, sir.
Okay.
I'm not talking about Lake
There
Parsippany.
are tall houses. Right across the street, we have a house that's
I
very
understand,
tall.
I know,
Okay.
but yours,
And all
the
we
question
did-
is a yes or no question. I don't need to hear this, yes or no.
Right.
This house sits where it sits, which is the lower grade, aspect of that whole road configuration. But does it stand taller than any of the houses and structures on Adelphia Road? Yes or no?
I really haven't measured them all. I would say that probably a good percentage of them, it may be taller.
How could you not be familiar with the project that you represent?
Well, I'm familiar with this project. We are under the allowable height for this zone, way under. We're way under 35 feet on the height of the building.
Well, we're still debating
We're
whether this is
also-
2 or 3 stories.
It's a 2.5-story building because the attic rafters sit on the floor, and your definition of half-story is very clear about how, when a half-story is not a half-story. It's written out in the definition of the ordinance, and we complied with that from day one in 2014. We don't want to create a 3rd floor, we never proposed it. We don't want to do it now. If you want to call it a 3rd floor, need to do that for the purpose of the zoning ordinance, and that's your habit or custom, then so be it. It's not gonna change the building, and we're not asking to change. But, basically, what I want to reassure you of is that the area is being transformed. I have another project right up the street on Adelphia with a big 2nd floor and a habitable attic proposed, and the permit's been issued. It's been held off on construction, but you're gonna see more of this type of expansion because people want to get up higher and see the lake.
That doesn't mean we're approving it.
Well, I'm not saying there's any reason to use that as a justification for approval. I'm just saying that it just so happens that you have some 1-story houses now that have not been developed yet, but it's a very popular area and people are growing families and they want to have more space.
And we are very sympathetic to that in our history of approving expanding homes to take care of elderly parents and extended family. But you're talking about going against the norms that we have applied in that we don't usually approve 3-story homes. And this, when you look at it, looks like a 3-story home. It's almost like a 4-story home because you have people in the basement. So it just seems like it's way overdone for my taste.
Well, all I can say to that is, that the house is still exactly the way it was approved in 2014 in the sense of the stories and the height. As far as I can tell you, I have the 2014 approval here if you want me to flip it open. But I did show you the elevation in my letter last month with the picture of the house next to it. And you could see that it was pretty much just the way it was approved. So we never intended to exceed any norm. We just thought we were doing what was appropriate for the house and the family. And they asked for a full basement that was finishable, which a lot of people want for recreation and for pool tables and different things like that. They had the kids over, and if somebody falls asleep down there, we wanted it to be safe, so we put an egress window in. And that's very normal now. You hear stories about people getting trapped in basements and firemen not able to get in and rescue. So we do that whenever we possibly can, in every basement, even if no one says, wants to sleep down there.
But I'm not sure that's the objection of the board. I'm not sure you'd have a problem if you didn't have the attic being inhabited. I can't speak to my colleagues, but I
Well,
think
wouldn't he
the
not
bigger...
be here?
I'm
Wouldn't he
sorry?
not be here if this project was really kind of...
Maybe not.
Constructed the way
Right.
it was approved back then? You wouldn't be here by now. You wouldn't be here right
Well,
now.
to have
It's a project that went awry.
Well, I think that's an unfair comment, with all due respect.
Then why are you here?
In 2014, we noted habitable attic. We had the permanent stair, we had the windows, we had the roof, just the way we built it pretty much. So we always intended that to be a partially finished attic. And that's why we did what we did, because we asked the board for approval and it was approved that way. The original drawings were approved that way. So we didn't come in later and say, let's finish the attic, let's add a story. And it's not right to characterize it that way.
So you're not changing the structure of the building out exteriorly, is that correct? You're not changing the exterior? Yes.
Right, the outside envelope is very similar to what.
But you changed it.
You
You added a door, a full door to go to the basement. That's a change.
Yeah, that was changed.
So you
and
did
the
change.
Zoning office approved that before we did that, before we even drew it or applied for permits, we had that approved.
And then, I comments here are a little negative. So we understand the family issue, and as Mr. Joshua would say, we are sympathetic to that. The problem here right now, it looks like you're planning to have a 4-story structure building with livable, habitable bathrooms and spaces on all 4 floors. That's not what
The owner has said this, they would.
now, the testimony she's giving here,
You would eliminate the shower in the basement and the attic.
Yes.
They're saying that we could eliminate the
need be,
shower.
yes.
Or make it.
Honestly, at this point, if I may speak.
you may speak.
Okay. At this point, I think we're ready to take away the bathrooms in the attic and the basement, if that's what it takes. Even the, the toilet part of it.
I don't think we're asking you to take the toilet out.
Okay, so just, yeah, we're okay with that.
I question the full bathrooms,
Yeah,
because I think that changes
That's
the
fair.
complexion of the house.
Yes,
From
totally.
an additional room for people coming visiting and a full-fledged room, okay? That's my problem anyway. I'm not speaking for the rest of the board. I think there's other issues. But, I mean, some of the information that has been presented about what the original, a habitable 3rd floor and a bedroom up there, and call it whatever you want, it was a bedroom. I think it was 2 entirely different things. And maybe, I'm sorry, you can't see me over my sign.
And how many laundry rooms are there?
I'm sorry.
How many laundry rooms are there?
There's one main laundry room, but we left provision. Sometimes people have like bigger blankets and stuff. They want a big machine. They don't want to just have to always use the small machine.
In the basement.
But it also could be used for somebody else living there as a separate room.
we're not gonna.
Well, some of this
They are
stuff,
re- they are removing the.
some of this stuff can be added later after the fact too. I mean, you can't, putting some piping in for a laundry, it's a lot easier than putting a bathroom in.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, they
So,
agree
Mr.
for
Chair.
the basement and the attic, bathrooms down. No,
Take
no
them out.
bathrooms.
No bathing in the
That's
basement.
30 feet.
Yes.
That's fine.
But they can have toilet and lavatory.
Yes,
That is a half.
that's, I'm in favor of that part, that I can.
Like a half.
So,
Okay.
Mr. Thank you. Mr. Chair, the height of this structure, because I was not here on the board in 2014, the height of this structure was approved by the 2014 board considering this application? Who can answer
I
that?
barely remember, I'm probably the only one that was on the board in 2014. Were you on 2014? You were, do you remember this application? I don't,
But
I was
there
on
was
the
no
board,
variance
but I
for
don't
height
remember.
then. Because
the height was not the problem. It
Because
was-
the height
Height
the
never
height
is, I was on the
It's
board
like-
actually.
You remember this?
I
No, you
I
do
don't
not.
remember.
But the testimony is
Not for an adult,
within
yeah.
the zoning ordinance, it's 35 feet. So,
And the surveyor rechecked all the average grade and all of that, he rechecked during his site. And we are still several feet below the maximum.
Well, it says 30 feet. 30 and a half.
What else? Is there any other testimony? Is there any other questions? Chaz, you have any, we're okay on the drainage, everybody's happy with that?
It seems like we have,
Subject to the letter.
right.
We've limited the 2 showers.
So half bath in the attic.
Yeah.
Half bath,
and basement.
half bath in the basement and the attic, right? And, is there any other issues? Any other issues over here on the right,
No.
on the left? No?
Just the walkout basement is probably the biggest concern.
Is that a Bilco door, or is it just a straight?
It's a straight door with stairs going down, so it's an entranceway. It was originally, I believe, a Bilco door, correct? And then you had some modification by the zoning officer, which I don't know how that happened, but it happened.
You know, this is something that can be retrofitted in half a day, so, you know, I just want the applicant to understand that this is not a two-family house, will never be a two-family house, okay? Two-family houses are not permitted in Parsippany, in any zone. There's approximately 35 two-family houses, give or take a couple, that predate even when Mr. Chadwick was on board, and that's a long time ago.
If I can interrupt, you know, just before there's all sorts of talk about what the zoning officer did or did
Yes.
not do, no one walks into the zoning office and talk to the zoning officer, and she just agrees without documentation. If she agreed to something, she would have edited her zoning permit. How this all came up about the attic is the construction department brought the plans down when they saw the habitable attic.
Right.
Those were not the same plans that the zoning officer saw.
Originally approved?
That's correct. So that's how this came up. Construction caught it, it was brought down, it was never part of the original permit, that's where it came from. And I just hear like some bashing of the zoning officer, so you need to like keep an open mind here.
Yeah.
You know,
I
about
mean, I don't know who
what's going
bashed
on.
the
It also
zoning
says
officer, I
on the
don't remember
memo-
hearing that.
It also says on the memo that they are concerned about the safety of the occupants on the 3rd story. We didn't even address that issue.
Mhm.
They didn't say why, though.
because there's no egress. If they're up there.
No, now they
Which
got
is
the
something we
egress.
addressed in our last meeting.
Let me just respond a little bit to that. But what Nora just said is just to clarify, what the building department noticed, which triggered that question with zoning, was the addition of the bathroom on the 3rd floor, the attic level. That's what made him say, wow, what's going on here? Right, Nora?
It was the habitable space, everything in these plans, they
The
were not
habitable
there, that was not what was presented to the zoning department when the application
So that
originally
wasn't-
came up.
Nor that wasn't part of the original application,
No.
that approval was
No, it
given.
was not.
So there was no approval for habitable space in the attic or the
No.
basement?
No.
I disagree with that because the drawings I have do show habitable attic, they show the permanent stair, they show the windows and everything just the way we.
But again, what the board secretary stated was there was an issue with plans presented in 14 that got approval, and then the plans that were submitted to afterwards to zoning, or to
I
construction,
think what
sorry.
triggered it though, because I just want to make clear that back at the end of 2019, we finished the drawings for the initial permit. We submitted them to zoning because we always submit 3 sets to zoning first before they go to the building department for permits. They review them. They say, okay, go ahead to the building department. Because that means, to us, we took that to mean, okay, you're fine, you're in compliance, you agree with what we were approved in zoning, in the variance, in the resolution. So we applied for permits. Now, those drawings had the full habitable attic in it. That was not added during construction or an afterthought. It was part of the original approved set of plans, which I have most of that here.
I don't mean to interrupt, but after approval by resolution, the zoning officer does not look at the plans again. Her permit is based off what was submitted, what she did her review on for the board, and the resolution. She does not review the plans again. So if you changed it and you're saying that you brought 3 sets to zoning, that you didn't. She didn't look at them. She does not look at plans again after approval by resolution.
I'm testifying very, as honestly as I possibly can. If there was no.
I've worked in the zoning department for 10 years before working for the boards.
I understand.
I was in zoning when this application, came to zoning. Okay?
I understand what you're saying, that they may not have opened every sheet and compared every sheet to the.
They don't look at plans at all after approval by resolution.
Okay. So, but what I'm trying to say, and want to reassure the board so they're not confused or misunderstanding anything, is the 2014 approval that I have here, I can show you again. I showed you in the letter of last month, the close-ups of where those notes were. And we did talk about the attic being partially finished. We had the big windows in the front and the sides, and we had the permanent stair going up. It wasn't just an unfinished attic. It was a usable attic, and it was noted that way on the site that was signed and approved by the board.
But there's a big difference
It was not
between a
something you
usable space where you send the kids up to play, or you put a ping pong table or a pool table, versus a full-fledged basement, a bedroom. Call it whatever you want. You were putting a full-fledged bedroom up there. Now, the fact that it couldn't be accessed directly from the public area, it was, so I think, you're dealing with definitions, and I think you're double talking, okay? Now, can we move on with this case? We all understand what's going on. Laura has explained her position with regard to the zoning officer, okay, and I understand her, I understand where you're coming from. Is there any other questions right now? Is there any member of the public that has any questions of these witnesses on the testimony given this morning? Questions on these two witnesses? Any questions? I hear none and see
I just
none.
ask a quick question about the application.
Yes.
Our original application that the owners filled out was for 2 variances. And then what happened was, after about a month, maybe after that, is when Jennifer wrote her letter, just referring to where she mentioned the 3rd floor question. Okay, so that variance for the so-called 3rd floor was not included in the application originally. But I understand, if I understand you correctly, you're saying that you want to add that as a variance, as a bulk variance, tonight. But the other option is to just agree that it's not a 3rd floor, that it's a half story, and that it was all done according to 2014.
Did you hear what I said a half hour ago?
I was just asking,
You didn't hear, did you?
amend the application to add that variance.
There's a building code and there's a zoning ordinance. We're the zoning board, we're not the building code.
It would just make life a lot easier if we just give you the freaking variance, please. Pardon my friend.
Okay, well, I just want to say before you vote that there are 3 variances now, right? There's 3 variances.
Okay.
And we will, we can usually notice when whatever, I mean, any others that are, any others, any.
I don't know. Do you know, Nora, do you know whether the notice included any and all of the variances?
I assume, probably not.
Whatever Jen, what the notice, unless they changed it,
It used to have it, I know that.
unless they changed it, the notice,
Was the last few lines.
So,
What about if you guys remove the whole bedroom in the attic?
states the sections that.
Leave it open area.
But it states under the sections.
What, can you just explain a little? Do you want us to like not have the bathroom and then open it more or close it off?
Half bath only and
Our
open area.
question right now is, if you need a third variance, did you notice for it? Would you, you're okay?
That is the notice. That's
It is?
that's the notice.
No bedroom?
This was the original one, I'm sorry. Yeah, because they were originally heard of.
Oh, there it is.
All right, you're okay.
Any and other variances? Yeah, it's there.
Any and other, so any other variances that are requested are in the notice, so you've noticed people that there might be other variances required. Very simple.
Thank you.
All right. Any other testimony? No. Any members of, I'm gonna ask this again, just to clarify. Any members of the public have any questions of these witnesses on the testimony given? I hear none and see none. There's nothing else you'd like to add? Now, I will give you an opportunity, if there's anybody who wants to speak an objection, that you can come back and tell us. And there's some, so I'm gonna ask right now, is there any members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to this application? In support of this application? Okay, I hear none and see none. Do we need to go into conference?
Probably.
Okay. Motion to go into conference?
So,
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Who wants to start?
I will. This applicant lacks my complete confidence. I am, we are setting ourselves up for a multi-family house here. Even with all the agreements that are outlined, the fact that we're here now and based on some of the expert testimony by this applicant that kept contradicting itself left and right in previous hearings and tonight, I have no confidence that any of the deals that will be formed tonight will be respected. Hence why we're here today, as outlined in previous testimony. So I'll be voting against it. And in addition to that, I wasn't here in 2014. That structure is humongous. Is not in coherence with the neighborhood. It's massive in scale, even in comparison to the newer construction along this street. Again, I'll be voting against it.
Mr. Berkowitz?
I understand all the machinations and everything we discussed. I'm a little concerned with any bathroom in the attic. I'd be more comfortable if there was no bathroom in the attic. Especially since I think it's, the access to it is through the bedrooms. So I haven't heard any testimony to me that would support the need for one up there. If that were the case, then I would, and the fact that it's a half bath in the basement, I would consider it the attic half story. I think I would be in favor of it under those circumstances.
So you want the elimination of the half bathroom upstairs?
I would think, that would make me in favor.
Can you live with that or not?
Live with what, say?
If they wanted to keep it, could you live with that half
I'd
bathroom?
probably be against it.
Probably against it, okay. Mr. Willens?
Yeah, we are here for the Board of Adjustment on zoning issues, right?
Right.
A lot of the other things we've been talking about are construction issues. And you're here because it appears from your plans that this was going to become a multifamily dwelling. You now are testifying that you will be willing to remove the bathrooms from the basement and the attic, is that correct?
Yes.
And that these are not in a habitable, and I think the term before was accessible versus habitable or whatever, okay? So the upstairs attic space, okay? Right now, you want family members to be able to go up there, and if you have extended family staying with you for a period of time, maybe have a place to lay down and sleep or rest up there, is that correct?
Yes.
All right, okay. And that would be the same case for the basement?
Not necessarily stay, I mean, probably put a ping pong table or something like that, but you don't want anybody to live inside the basement. That's why I'm agreeing to taking out the bathroom as well, if that be.
Okay, all right. So, if you're, in your testimony, I'm relying on more than anything else here, by the way, okay?
Yes. I
For your-
promise.
For your family, okay?
Yes.
Your promise is one thing, testimony is another, okay?
Right.
All right? But for the house itself, you're not altering the structure of the house, externally, so you're gonna make it more habitable for your family needs internally by some of these changes, okay? And if you remove the possibility of that becoming a multifamily dwelling by taking out those bathrooms, I would probably support, this application.
But just for the record, they're not, testimony so far is that they're not taking out the bathrooms in the attic or the basement. They said that they would take out the showers, so you'd still have a half.
A half bath, yes, I'm sorry, half bath, yes.
You would be willing to keep the half
Yes,
bath
yes.
in the basement?
Yes.
What about the half bath?
Yeah,
in the attic?
I think that'd be okay.
Okay, Mr. Reddy?
Yeah, same thing, here. To accommodate the family needs, it is a one-family house with 4 bedrooms. That's what I believe. Basement completely, no full bath, only half bath. And going to the attic, only half bath, and it should be like a plain area, no rooms or anything.
Right.
Like a livable, just like kids playing or chit chat or somebody can talk, and not a livable place. So, and the third one is, if the height of the building is in compliance with the code of permitted code. So if all these things are in compliance, I'm in favor of this.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Jaskowitz?
I agree with Ms. Schneider. I'm against it. I think it's been very confusing and hasn't been put forward smoothly and straightforward. I think for, the attic is done already, so to undo it doesn't make sense to me. I don't think that's happening, and I'm uncomfortable. We never addressed the safety issue, which is the one letter we had. That was never addressed, so I'm totally uncomfortable and I'm voting against it.
Okay. First of all, I would like to say that to the applicant, that I'm sorry that we've gotten to this point, of quite a bit of discussion and maybe some controversy and misunderstanding between the building code and zoning, et cetera, et cetera. If you're willing to take out the showers on the top floor and in the basement, I understand Ms. Schneider's comments, but I think if the applicant came here and testified under oath that they will not do certain things, it's a little different than people who just do things on their own accord and put basements, and we've had them where they've put full kitchens and full apartments and basements, and, you know, they come and ask for forgiveness, not for permission. And I think these people are really asking for permission. So I would be voting in favor, as long as we can resolve the drainage issues, which Mr. Holloway says we can. We have the height issue addressed. Not an issue, okay. The variances would be
The front porch, you have the front porch variance, which we didn't discuss, but it shows where it is, and the deck in the back, which was, I thought that was in the original plans. And of course, the bathroom issue.
Okay. So,
Discussed ad nauseam.
and I think we're gonna need confirmation from the town engineer of the drainage agreement. Okay?
Right now, you have 3 and 3.
And that's a win.
No.
Ties a win? No, ties a
No.
win.
Ties are lost. They don't have it.
Well, I thought that she said she was going to remove the bathroom in the attic totally.
You need to remove the bathroom from upstairs to get approval. Because you're at 3-3 right now, and that's a
So
loss.
no half bath.
That's fine.
Fine, okay. So you're amending your application, you're amending everything to eliminate the bathroom upstairs and the shower downstairs.
Yes. It's
You're
okay
okay
to have
with
the
it?
half bath
I agree.
downstairs, or should we remove that too? Is it okay to have the half bath in the basement?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, that we're all in agreement with, yes. Okay, motion to come out of conference?
So moved.
Some, seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, I would recommend that we authorize the attorney to draw up a resolution. What we're gonna do, in order so that you're not represented by counsel tonight, okay? So what I wanna explain to you is that Mr. King is gonna draw up a resolution which encompasses all the aspects that we spoke about tonight, okay? And you will have an opportunity to look at that resolution. Now, I'm not saying you need to engage counsel to review it, you probably don't need to. You might have your professionals just look at it to make sure everybody's on the same wavelength. Okay, so I'm asking someone to frame a resolution to authorize Mr. King to draw up a resolution that encompasses all the things that we spoke about, eliminating the half bath, the bathroom upstairs, eliminating the shower in the basement, and I believe everything else is approved, subject to the engineer's letter and all the drainage issues being addressed. Do I have a motion to that effect?
I move the motion.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? Nora, call the roll.
Berkowitz,
Yes.
Jaskowitz,
No.
Ready,
Yes.
Snyder,
No.
Willand,
Yes.
Ira Kane.
Yes. Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Thank you so much.
It was like having root canal without Novocaine, right?
Like three tickets.
Oh, dear.
Thank you. You leaving? Yes.
Yeah. Cannot be. I'm not making motion to. You go.
Mr. Chairman, I have to recuse myself from the next case.
Okay.
I make the motion to remove.
Thank you.
You're lucky.
Come on up, Mr. O'Neill. Does anybody have to, take a break?
You're lucky.
You lost one.
Okay.
Are we okay with the board? Scott,
Say what?
we're down to 5?
We're gonna be down to 5, that's correct.
Well, she went to the bathroom.
She went to the bathroom, she'll be right back. Those are the people that, yeah, those are a couple we agreed to give them more.
Joe, did you want to put on the record what was discussed about the issue in town?
You want to?
Yeah. Okay. What's going on now? Well, we'll look.
Mr. King.
He says how he's having lunch on the day. This is my contact. I said it's about time to get something.
Who's he having lunch with?
People from I'm sitting there at a booth with the manager. Are we ready?
Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Joseph O'Neill of Garofalo O'Neill Ruggiero here on behalf of the applicant. This is a bifurcated application. Use variance approval, and all the variances actually were granted in the prior approval. This is the site plan testimony. With me, I have Mr. McClellan to my immediate right, who we'll introduce in a moment. But I believe Mr. King and I need to discuss.
Yes,
I recognize him with his mask on.
I don't reckon I've been with my pants on. It's been a long time since I've had to do a meeting like this.
I could have gone all night without.
So the issue that we want to bring before the board, the town, specifically the town attorney, has sent a letter to us with regard to the set-aside. The town went into, or had an agreement based upon the litigation that going forward would be 20%. The issue is the decision, the date of that decision, how it affects this application. When this application was filed and the approvals were granted, that agreement was not executed, to my knowledge. I don't think it was. And I believe, your opinion,
I could
it
fill
was
in
not.
some dates here.
Yep.
We were declared complete in, just give me a minute, I'm sorry. August 15th, 2019, we were declared complete. The settlement was beginning to work its way through the courts at that point. The township adopted enabling ordinances memorializing the settlement that became effective October 1st of 2019. We had already begun the application and had had at least one hearing, perhaps two at that point. Our position is that this is an issue that was covered by the use variance itself for the units. Affordable housing units are elements of a use. They're not elements of bulk. So when we got the approval for the use variance, we got the right to build the units in the configuration that you see here before you tonight. That's supported by the Homes of Hope case, which we cited in the original hearing, that provided that providing affordable units over what's required would actually be considered an inherently beneficial use.
In any event, it was 15%, the agreement was for 20. There's, the old rule is, it's, I guess, time of the essence, more or less, or the time that those ordinances were in effect. If you predate it, you're not subject to them. If it's after, you are subject to them. The argument is that this application was not subject to the 20%, and it was agreed upon 15%. I think there was some discussion about that. The only nuance in it is that this involves a settlement with the state. It's not as clear as it was just an ordinance change. But again, I think the zoning board is taken out of that. It's more of an issue, if it becomes an issue, between the township and the applicant.
Yeah, the settlement was with.
What are we talking about in number of units? How many units is 20 and 50? What was it?
5%, what's 5% of your total units?
What's the double count?
10 units?
It's 156, so it'd be 15's half of that, 7.
7, we're talking about 7 units.
Right.
Number one.
Right.
Number two, if this gets litigated, it's gonna get litigated by the town, not by us.
That's
I
correct.
have no indication that the town's gonna do anything like that.
And we approved it already, and that's, no.
Well, the time that it rolled through, it was filed, was predated the settlement.
So you
to my
think
understanding.
we're okay with
Well,
our...
that has always been the long-standing.
Anybody have any problems with that? Well, Mr. Berkowitz, you have any problems with that?
Mhm.
Good.
The key to this is the plan was deemed complete.
Okay.
And that's where you fix your ordinance. And they were well ahead of the settlement.
Okay, so it's a done deal.
Yeah. Again, the only nuance would be with this court settlement. It's a little bit different. But again, that's not a litigation that is our concern. And all our resolutions do say that you'd have to follow whatever is deemed appropriate by the municipal boards.
You have to remember that the time this thing was filed, there was no requirement for affordable. And if the board recalls, Mr. O'Neill and I had a discussion about how much you were gonna have set aside, how much you weren't.
Okay.
And he agreed that the gold standard was 15%, and they would live with it.
Would that be part of our board purview anyway?
At that time, we weren't involved in that litigation, so we had no knowledge of it. So again, that would be us, that would be the town and the applicant, if that's.
We discussed it, the 20% number wasn't really public, or I don't remember if I knew about the 20% number when we did the first hearing. That really just came about as part of the settlement with Fair Share Housing.
This has no bearing on our job at this point, does it?
No, it doesn't, but you did receive a letter, and we did.
Fine,
I just wanted to bring it up to the board.
thank you. And it's been brought up, and let's
Part of the
proceed.
record.
We got too many things.
There's one other item that's,
Oh, okay.
it's really if you grant the preliminary and final site plan, you should make a condition to either a statement of exemption from the Highlands Act, because the town did join in December 20th, 2020, which was after our approval, but before preliminary site plan approval. So I don't know what Highlands Council will do. If they say, no, you gotta come to us, well, they'll have to go there. If they say you're exempt, they're exempt.
No problem.
The town has no regulations whatsoever.
Yeah.
Adopted, or as I understand, even in the working stage for
Oh, I don't know
Highlands
about that.
compliance.
There are no adopted regulations that I could find on.
No.
Okay. Thank you. Noted. Go ahead.
So with all that, Mr. McClellan will discuss the site plan. I'll have him sworn again.
Sir, raise your right hand. You swear firm testimony about to give before the board is true self you got?
I did,
And for the record, you're the engineer?
yes,
While your licenses are in full force and effect, you've provided testimony before this board or other boards in the state of New Jersey.
I have, yes.
Right, Mr. Chairman, he's qualified as an expert.
So, Mr. McClellan, referring to the plan that you filed, I wonder if you could just walk us through what it is we're proposing. I will point out to the board, we did extensive testimony about the site plan, about truck turning radiuses, about all that in the original application, even though we did not apply for a site plan. So this is going to be a lot shorter than that. Mr. McClellan?
Good evening. If I seem out of practice, again, I apologize, it's my first live meeting in 8, 9 months.
Wow.
Okay.
More than a year.
Got so used to doing it on the computer, so. Anyway, as council has said, you've seen this application before for use variance. We're calling this Powder Mill Plaza West. It's located at Block 18, Lot 8, on Route 10 West. The property is currently fully developed with a series of commercial and retail spaces, and the plan is to redevelop the property, to remove the existing building and
Plan stated.
the plan that we're looking at is revised 6/3/2021.
Thank you.
This is the set that was submitted, and I haven't made any changes, just on a board, so I have something to point to. Referring to sheet 3, the proposal again is to remove the existing building, and we're going to be constructing a building with 156 residential units. This is the same building that we had before this board for the use variance. So essentially, it's the same application. There's really only one minor adjustment to the zone schedule. Everything is the same from the previous application, except that we have a very slight reduction in the impervious cover proposed. We had in the use variance application, we had 64.1% on the approved plan, and this one has a slight reduction to 63.9%. All the rest of the bulk requirements are the same from the previous application. We're proposing again a single building, 3 stories with 52 units per floor. And we have, at the back of the building, we have parking underneath the building. We're taking advantage of the fact that the property slopes down.
It's 2 buildings, right?
It's one building. It's connected,
But
it's,
that's completely open, right?
yeah, it's,
2 building with connecting courtyard.
well, it has a connecting garage underneath.
Yeah, okay. That's a
So-
better way to-
Yeah, so, anyway, so it is 52 units per floor, with 91 parking spaces underneath, and a total of 407 spaces throughout the site. I think probably the easiest way to do this, Mr. O'Neill, is to go through, the letter.
Sure. The July 9th, 2021 letter,
Meg, yes.
Mr. Holloway.
And I did have an opportunity to talk to Mr. Holloway earlier today. We have reviewed this letter in detail, and generally, as a whole, we have no objections or issues with the comments.
And you'll comply with?
We'll comply with them. There are a few that were asked for some testimony, so I am going to talk about 12 or 13 of them specifically, if I may. Put my glasses on. All right, so starting on page 2 of Ms. Holloway's letter, number 2, testimony should be provided for the status of the existing and proposed variances and waivers. Again, just for the board's edification, we're listing use variance, building height, building stories, lot coverage, building coverage, wall height, and steep slope disturbances. All of those variances were part of the original use variance application, and we've repeated those items here. And again, all of the bulk requirements, all of the variance, all the deficiencies that we were asking permission for the last time and approved are the same, except for building coverage, which has actually been reduced by 0.2%. Not a heck of a lot, but it's in the right direction at least. So we have not changed or exacerbated any of the variances that were previously approved. Item 3, council had discussed the affordable housing, so I think that's provided a sufficient testimony to respond to that comment. Moving to item 6, applicant should provide testimony regarding permits needed. This application, should it be approved, will require a DOT access permit, because we are on Route 10. We are proposing to remove the 2 existing access points that are there today, and we're proposing 1 new access point down the center of the site to improve the circulation on and off of the property. We'll also need a sewer extension application, treatment works approval. We'll require a water main extension application. Both of those are a result of the number of residential units that we're proposing, so we require permits for those numbers. And then finally, we'll need Morris County Soil Conservation District, and I don't believe we'll need Morris County, but typically we file just to at least get an exemption letter.
Do you have allocation for the water? For this site?
We can't get allocation until we file an approved plan, so we'll be filing that. Again, if the board should act favorably, we'll file that. And I understand that there's some issues there, but we certainly will, we'll go through that process.
So this application would be subject to that allocation?
Yes, it would. Item 8, plan should include a detail of what's planned in the open recreational area. And, again, the plans don't specifically outline what's there, but for the record, we're proposing it to be a passive recreation area. It's going to consist of, outdoor gathering using tables and chairs. It's not intended to be a children's play area or intended to be, anything that would be a noisy outdoor activity. Item 9, I just want to confirm to the board that the project's isolated on Route 10. Consideration of a 5-foot curb and sidewalk walking path around the perimeter of the building should be considered, and we think that's a good idea. So we just wanted to put on the record that we will add that to the plan. Currently, there's sidewalk about 2/3 of the way around the building, but we'll continue it around the back, and it'll give pedestrian circulation around the whole building to all the access points, and also could be a source of exercise for somebody who chooses to use that for that purpose. Item 10, applicant should provide testimony regarding the building inclusion of pets, and if the tenant is available to the buffer area located along the northerly property line. The policy of the applicant is not to allow pets. They will have to recognize service animals if someone should have that need, but the policy will be no pets, so there won't be a provision for pet walking or things of that nature.
No access to the...
No access to the back, yeah. Item 13, applicant should provide testimony regarding electrical vehicle charging stations and bike racks. Regarding charging stations, it actually is in the future plans of the applicant to provide charging stations. It's an oncoming and emerging technology. It's something that's becoming important in residential projects. There is not a specific plan today of how to do that, but it is something that they are willing to do in the future. If the board wanted to, say, set aside, say, 6 parking spaces for the purposes of future electric charging, the applicant will be willing to do that. Regarding the bike racks, though, we did not consider bike racks here. Unfortunately, the project being located on Route 10, it doesn't seem, too much of a good idea to promote the bicycle riding, so we have not provided bicycle racks. Number 14, applicant should provide testimony regarding loading areas and box truck delivery areas. We currently do not have a loading area specified on the plan, but that's also a growing concern with Uber and all of the delivery services that are now out there. We've discussed with the applicant the idea of putting perhaps a loading area actually right in front of the building. We actually have a rather large concrete plaza area that we could carve out a loading area for that purpose. So we would be willing to accept that as a condition should the application be approved.
Have you thought about having some place that they would drop the packages in the building as opposed to leaving them by doors?
I think I would have to defer that question. I have not had that conversation, but perhaps Art.
I just saw it in an application elsewhere, and it seemed to make a lot of sense, especially if you have 156 units.
Yeah.
It's a good chance the packages getting dropped off, and of course, they're not gonna be inside somebody's front door, they're gonna be in the hallway.
Well, I will defer that. Thank you. Just a couple more. Number 18, applicant should testify regarding site identification signage. The current plan, there's two existing monument-type signs out in frontage, both of which will be removed. There'll be one new sign proposed. It's not been designed yet, but it will be located in the Boulevard Island at the center of the access way. That's actually very close to the more westerly sign that's there now, and it is very effective. There's a good sight line to that one. The applicant proposes, a fully conforming sign, and once it's designed, it'll apply for the appropriate zoning permits, and it will be compliant with the zoning ordinance. But there has not been a design yet for that. Number 21, applicant should testify regarding vehicular and pedestrian access to the adjoining lot 19. Lot 19 is one lot to our west, and there's currently a driveway from the back of our property to that property next door. We had originally thought to close that off because we're having some topographic concerns there, but we've since rethought it. The plan still shows it closed off, but the applicant would like to maintain that driveway. So we would have a small reconfiguration of this area here that would open it back up. It would cost us 2 parking spaces to do it. So we'd be reduced now to 405 spaces, but we're far in excess of the requirement. So if the board has no objection to that, we'd like to reverse that back to leaving it open on as a condition of approval.
Is that partly for fire truck access as well as
It's for
safety?
fire truck access. It's actually also to assist cross-access for the getting out to Route 10. Our traffic engineer tells us, anytime you can encourage cross-traffic on the properties, it's less vehicle movements out on the roadway. And then the applicant should testify regarding an auxiliary generator, to advise the board that there is not a plan for an auxiliary generator, so we don't have one shown on the plan. Flipping ahead to page 5 under utilities, just to confirm item 2 under utilities, this building will be fully sprinklered, required by code, and will of course be complied with. Item 6, applicant should provide testimony regarding the proposed water connection points. What we can show you is, and I'm referring to sheet 2 of our plan, which is our existing conditions. There's currently water and sewer service to this site because it's fully developed. Our homework is telling us that there's a water line that exists coming down the east side of the property, around the back, and then onto the adjacent property. And then there's a second water line that tees off of that line and then also goes off onto lot 19. Our proposal is actually to continue to maintain that connection and to create one more leg of the loop between these two Ts. You still have to do flow testing. We still need an MEP to design all of the pipe sizes and such, but there is water supply.
You're still gonna be connected to lot 19?
Yeah, we do not plan to disconnect that now.
All right, do they have another connection somewhere? I just would feel more comfortable if I knew it was looped somehow. I don't know.
We'll have to do some research and share that with you. Yeah, we'll confirm that it's not a dead end on.
Yeah, it could be a couple lassos, that kind of thing.
I understand that comment. And then the entire section for stormwater management, this is a site that has a stormwater management design on it. The proposal actually decreases the impervious cover by about a half an acre. So by rule, we're satisfying the stormwater management regulations. However, Mr. Holloway has a bunch of comments that are actually applicable and good comments, and we will comply with them all. And then finally, under the section of traffic and parking, item 3, just to confirm, or I guess to discuss with the board, we recognize that we're far in excess of the required parking. Chaz, just to correct, we have on our plan that we need 307 parking spaces. We actually need 289. We had a mathematical blunder in our spreadsheet. So we actually need 289. We're proposing 407. We'll lose, a couple of spaces because of the interconnection. So even if I said we're down to 400 with that, we're far in excess of what's required. Now, we're doing that because we're on Route 10. We don't have opportunity for off-site parking. However, if, the board has discussed in the past the idea of maybe reducing the amount of parking, maybe reverting some of the spaces back to green, and, the applicant does not object to that strategy, if the board would like to see that.
And the options are to bank the parking spaces.
Yeah.
Show it from a conceptual standpoint.
Right.
So that would be for consideration when we're looking at.
Okay, so we could.
We have no opportunity for street parking, and what if you have an excessive number of visitors? I don't know, would you ever have more than 100 visitors at one time? I don't know that stuff.
We could always lean on the residential site improvement standards because they tell us that guest parking is considered, but they clearly don't talk about Mother's Day or Thanksgiving or Super Bowl Sunday. I'll be honest with this board, this is probably the most excessive parking I've seen in a project. It's done so, it's convenient because we have it, we can do it. And as Mr. Holloway said, though, I know at the variance hearing, we talked about the idea of banking the parking. So where we can designate a certain number of spaces that will not be, that will be reserved for parking if there becomes a need, but we can revert them to green space. And, if 5 years down the road, there's a problem with the parking, they can take 20 of the bank and pave them. So, we're amenable to that idea. And if the board, sees fit, we certainly will work with you on that. And again, all the other comments in the letter, we have no issue complying with.
There's gonna be a 5-foot sidewalk around there.
Yeah, that one I specifically brought on the record because I think that's an excellent idea. So I want to specifically say to the board that we're gonna be providing that.
Can you please just show us where the doors are that might be for the architect?
Well, I don't have the doors clearly shown on my plan, and that's part of the coordination we have to do. Because I don't show doors on the west edge, and I don't show sidewalk here, and I think that's what prompted your yeah, and good catch, because one, we have almost 40 feet of a drive-by out here, so we have opportunity for sidewalk to hit all the doors. We also have opportunity for a little green strip in there that we'd like to do. So, we welcome an opportunity to show you, without taking up the board's time, I think we can do a good job complying with those comments.
Mr. McClellan, there's a major soil moving permit associated with this application also. Can you testify to that?
then I forgot oh, here we go. Thank you, Mr. Leza. Yeah, we had done this project is largely, to grade anyway, but we are going to create, a better experience out there, because right now the slopes when you come in off of Route 10 are really steep. So we are gonna fill soil in the front of the property, and the building's designed to have parking under a story lower at the back. So the building kind of becomes a wall, and we're putting soil in the front. So as a result, we have an import of soil coming to this site. We've estimated it to be 5,071 cubic feet. We've prepared plans to show that number, and the engineering department has reviewed it and has, according to their letter dated April 23rd, they have no objections to issuing a soil moving application.
5,071 cubic feet, there's 9 cubic feet.
Cubic yards, I'm sorry.
Cubic yards, okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, 450 trucks, 460 trucks?
Sounds
Oh,
good.
wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
We're using 20 yards.
I don't know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
5071 divided by 20.
Approximately
Like 225 trucks. or
Yeah,
something.
and over the life of this project, that's, and
And it's only coming on 10, there's no
yeah, I was gonna
sidewalks.
say, if it's timed right, it would come, it would be local spoils from other projects by this client, so, it would actually, it would help benefit, because it would give a local destination if there was any soils coming off of some of the other projects nearby.
I'd like to talk about the generator and the fire suppression system. I think you're gonna need power to operate a fire suppression system, won't you?
You think it'll need a pump system?
I would think.
Yeah, well, again, a little early in the process for a design to have been done, but certainly pressure flow testing for the water system is gonna be needed.
Those generators, let's do it this way. If you do need a generator, or choose to have a generator to keep juice there when the power goes out, that it will not be on the outside of the building. The outsides and rear of the building, meaning
The
Interior.
perimeter of
to
the
the
lot.
residential side, period.
Yeah,
Because you have to exercise those things, I don't know, once a week or something like that.
yeah,
They're annoying.
we have, yeah, because the residential at the back, we certainly can stay away from that. We have some opportunity over here if need be. I think we have some
Put it in the
opportunity.
garage.
So, yeah. So, yeah, we can, if needed, we can comply with that.
Will any transformers
Under the
be
garage,
required?
maybe nice,
Huh?
nice.
Well, again, that's what we're talking about, an alternate source of power should,
It's gonna make
should it be
noise.
needed. And if,
Okay, it's a good spot.
Candidly, as long as it can be vented, I think that it could be done. So if it's possible to put in the garage, and the things we have to,
All I'm suggesting to the board is that it is not located on the residential side of this property.
yeah, that's not a problem. We can comply with that.
I don't think you're gonna have to.
I have no further questions for this witness.
Any more questions to this witness? Mr. Holloway, you're okay? Mr. Chadwick, you're okay? Looks
Yes.
like everybody else is okay. Next witness. Oh, any members of the public have any questions of this witness on the testimony given this evening? Any questions by members? Please come forward.
Ma'am, do you have a question?
Mr. O'Neill,
Did
is
you have a
there any
question,
other
ma'am?
witnesses?
Mr. McDonough is going to be, have
Lights.
other witnesses for questions. If the board has-
Lighting and landscaping, he's not gonna run
She
through
has a
that quick.
question. Mr.
John
Chairman.
is.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, she's working her way up. Hi.
Just for the record, can you state your name?
You gotta come closer to the microphone, please.
Barbara Marzloff,
How do you spell that, ma'am? M-A?
Marzloff, 2 F's like in Frank.
Thank you.
Barbara, just before you got up, there's one more witness, Mr. McDonough, who is going to explain landscaping and lighting, and I don't know if your questions are gonna go to that. Maybe we want to hear him first or not. It's up to you.
Yeah, we can hear her.
Okay.
Mr. McDonough.
Any other members of the public have any questions of this witness? And it looks like I see none.
Thank you. Don't go too far.
Thank you, Mr. McClellan.
Mr. McDonough, you've been sworn, you've not been sworn yet, correct?
Not for this application.
Raise your hand. You swear from the testimony you're about to give before the board is true self you got?
Yes, I do.
And for the record, all your licenses are in full force and effect?
Yes, that's correct. I'm testifying in the capacity of both a planner and a landscape architect.
And you've been qualified before this board and other boards in the state of New Jersey?
Yes,
as
I
an
have.
expert. Mr. Chairman, the witness has been qualified as an expert.
Okay, Mr. McDonough, you are familiar with the application before the board this evening?
Yes, I am.
You've had an opportunity to examine the local ordinances and master plan?
Yes, I have.
And I wonder if you could go ahead and compare this application to those documents right after you do your landscaping testimony.
Sure thing. So we were involved with the use variance plan as well in the application, which we know was vetted extensively through multiple hearings with the board. In connection with that application, we put forth a report that it's actually about 2 years old now, almost to the day, where we addressed the site plan aspects, we addressed both the C and the D relief that the applicant was considering, and they were actually folded into the D relief that the applicant was granted for use. In that regard, we've put together a landscape plan on top of the site plan that Pat McClellan has put together. I'm happy to report that the site plan is in substantial conformance with the use variance plan, and in effect, the use variance plan has held up through the scrutiny of site planning detail as we work our way through the grading and the drainage. And here I put together a landscape and lighting plan on top of Mr. McClellan's plan. You've heard the detail, I'll say, of the nuts and bolts of the plan in terms of the infrastructure, the circulation, the access, the parking, the building positioning. The overall key numbers of this application remain substantially consistent with that which was approved under the use variance plan. The density is exactly the same. The overall layout is substantially similar to that which the board reviewed under site plan as well. Building mass hasn't changed, floor area, and the like. The planting plan that we put together focuses on 3 main parts here. The back part, the buffer, which is up against the residential area, both preserves the mature and dense woodland that presently is in place there now. It's no change to what we presented as part of the use variance application. The plan also to supplement that with additional plantings, upwards of 150, are also exactly the same as that to which we testified to. We did talk about site-specific locations during construction with sensitivity and care to our neighboring properties behind us in the back. Second part of the landscape package includes extensive plantings in the interior of the parking lot. We've provided trees and shrubs throughout. Mr. McClellan has given us a good base to work with, that this is not going to be an expansive asphalt, but actually something that is well broken up. You know, the site presently is stepped in its current condition, and what Mr. McClellan's plan does here is does create a nice flat plane, which is much more conducive to a residential living environment. That makes it easier for us to break up the parking lot with a planting plan that can actually have lower plantings than what we see out there presently now, and much greater variety than we see on the property presently. And then finally, the last part of the landscape plan emphasizes the building itself, helping, I'll say, the hard lines of the building blend with the natural landscape, and we've put a foundation planting all around the perimeter of the building as well. We've gone with a wide variety of plant selections here, with an emphasis on native plantings, on drought-tolerant plantings, deer-resistant plantings, and plantings that would overall be low maintenance. We've also put together a lighting plan that will safely illuminate the site in the interior. meeting what are typical site planning standards in terms of the interior. Also, again, with consideration and sensitivity to our neighbors on the perimeter of the property. We have house side shields such that there will be no spillage of light onto those adjacent properties. And also, we've designed a plan that is what I'll say is dark sky compliant to the extent that this is not going to create what we might call a stadium effect or a sky glow effect, where those lights will reverberate to the sky. So directional pointed lights, these are new LED lights, have higher energy efficiencies than those older shoeboxes that are out there now. Care and consideration given to our surrounding neighborhood with those cutoffs both at the edge and in the sky as well. In that regard, the plan, the landscaping and the lighting does conform to the ordinances here in town, and no design exceptions or relief is sought in that regard. To affirm the relief that the board previously granted here, this site is in a transitional zone. It happens to be called the office transitional zone. The board has already found that residential multifamily is an appropriate transitional use here from non-residential to the lower density residential that's on the downhill side of the site. And all of the relief that was previously granted has not changed whatsoever. The building height, the number of stories, the building coverage, the lot coverage also holds what was set forth before, but only better. As you heard through Mr. McClellan's testimony, there's a slight downtick in the overall coverage from previously 64.1% to now 63.9%. So that's a betterment over that which the board has already vetted. The applicant is seeking relief for the wall height, which are going to be the string of walls that run along the Route 10 side, but they are going to plunge downward from Route 10, so they're not going to stand out as obtrusive structures on Route 10, and they're only going to be 6 feet high. I think the board knows well that your ordinances here in town have a 4-foot height limit for walls and fences in the front yard, but again, these are not going to be perceivable. They help to effectuate that, I'll say, grade catch-up and that flatter plane on the downhill side. Likewise, relief for steep slopes. There are aspects of the property now, particularly around the perimeter and in the interior where we have that tiering taking place, that does trigger relief for steep slopes, but these are all man-made slopes. These are previously disturbed slopes, and the applicant are not disturbing raw or natural slopes that have not already been disturbed. All said, this is just to reaffirm the relief that the board has already granted, that all of the project positives carry forth. This plan is going to continue to promote the public good with new housing stock and, of course, that added element of affordable housing as well. The site plans now demonstrate that the project will promote a positive aesthetic and efficient use of land. All of this continues to promote the purposes of the land use law, especially Purpose A, the promotion of the general welfare, Purpose G, to provide for a variety of uses in appropriate locations, Purpose I, the promotion of a desirable visual environment, and Purpose M, again, the efficient use of land. On the negative side, any impacts associated with this development will be minimal to the extent that certainly the benefits of the application as a whole would substantially outweigh the detriments. And in that regard, I believe the statutory criteria for relief are met, and approval on the site plan level is warranted here. Just a couple of things to plug in terms of questions from the board. I think there was a good question about the package room. This plan, just to echo what was told through Mr. Holloway's question, this is one building with two wings, a left and a right wing, or an east and a west wing is what it's called on the plan. Each has a lobby with a package room off of it, and the applicant will stipulate to put lockers in there for package drop-off and the like. So that is covered in the floor plans and contemplated by the architecture of the building. I think I addressed everything you wanted me to hit. Was there anything else? What's that? Oh yes, and the generator is not needed here. The fire suppression system is adequate, told through the applicant's experience that a generator will not be needed here for the fire suppression system.
Okay. Fine.
Could you explain the access to the passive recreation area? I'm just trying to, I see all the landscaping there, and I'm trying to, say I'm on a sidewalk and I want to go to the passive recreation area.
Sure. So, I don't have the architectural plans here, but the open space area is going to be the lower tier. Bearing in mind, both of these Ls, these wings rise up from there. And you can't see it here, but it's a centrally loaded or double-loaded corridor that actually loops back to the front of the building, and there'll be a door that punches out.
Is there a sidewalk connection between that and
The parking, the rooftop terrace of the parking structure, I believe, is elevated relative to the grade. I don't think it's flush. It is flush?
Yes, you're
okay.
parking in the back.
So I do have sidewalks in our landscape plan. I have to go back and check if they follow Pat's base plan as well. But Chaz, if the question is to connect this sidewalk to that center
Or
courtyard,
even just the main sidewalk that's going all the way around to get back there.
we can punch an access point through there. I see no reason why not. So you can get to that center court from both the inside and the outside.
I have no further questions.
Did we address the fire inspector's report in any way? Did I miss that?
The real answer to that is there's a lot of specifications, but you don't really have any choice.
I think the short answer is we'll comply, but I don't know if an issue is raised.
We're gonna let Mr. McCall.
Will comply.
And there's verbiage here I've never heard of before. Like corporation stops, meter yoke. But you said you'll conform with everything, right?
The township has standards for those.
Okay.
Township has standards, so.
And they said something about no fire lanes and associated signs indicated on plans?
Yep, we'll set those up and then we'll
Knox box location.
submit it to them for their review and acceptance.
I think you'd mentioned the sprinkler system, right?
We did.
Fire alarm, which shall be designated fire, okay, well, that's good.
And at the use variance application, we did talk in detail about the fire truck access.
Okay.
And the fire department did confirm that that was acceptable.
Okay, we talked about the soil moving. Dan Casisa's memo, I have no idea what he's saying here. He's got total units and then market and COA, he's got nothing. Does that make any difference, or?
It's not changing from the original approval.
Fine, okay.
We'll get that information to you.
Okay, all right, that's that, huh?
That's complete.
Huh?
That's complete.
I think so.
Mr. O'Neill, have you made any contact to the Highlands Commission at all?
No, we've not had an opportunity to do that. I was more concerned with trying to see if any standards have been adopted locally. While they've accepted Highland standards, they don't appear to have done any of the enabling ordinances. So I don't know. If there's a requirement.
It's kind of
we'll
a
comply.
multi-stage process to become a quote member of the Highlands grouping, and they did the first step saying, we will join you, as far as I can determine.
Yeah, my impression was always you do that step and the enabling ordinances at the same time, but obviously I'm mistaken. So we'll comply with whatever the regulation.
Any questions of Mr. McDonough?
Actually, I have one, I think. There was some discussion about the possibility of banking some parking spaces to create more recreational or green area. Do you have a recommendation on something like that, since you're familiar with
Well,
the
if we look
landscape?
at the pure math, I think we calculated that to eliminate the coverage relief altogether would be about 90 spaces. I think that's, we have a surplus of about 100 or so spaces. I don't know that we want to go that extreme. Maybe there's a happy medium somewhere. But again, the reason why there's so much parking here is because this site has so much parking already. We're working within the constraints of the site that way it's already been developed. We have an applicant that's willing to make the site more green, so I don't know, Mr. Berkowitz, if the question is where do you bank?
Yeah, because I have no idea what could be done, but I'm guessing.
Could be any place out front there.
It could be,
I'll leave it to the board, but of course, I would think that if you're going to bank, it's those spaces furthest away, those on the base of the wall. Those are the least convenient of the spaces.
And the thing is, this is basically a one-bedroom project.
Yes, I don't
I
remember.
forget what the percentage of one-bedrooms are. Is that
Just
120?
I'm just reading it.
Thanks, Pat.
So, you know, the one-bedroom is what, 1/8? Is that what it is?
Yes.
I mean, you got such a multiple with that. I mean, that's almost saying you're gonna have 2 occupants that each has their own car.
With 400 spaces.
Yeah, way over, yes. So I would agree with John. Leave those spaces out furthest away. Gives you a place to pile snow, you know, all those fun things.
We'll agree to that last row being converted into bank spaces.
well, we're gonna provide some temporarily green area for it, or
What can we
it's
do
just
there?
gonna be, unlined pavement?
Bocce courts in.
There you go.
We will put green space in there.
Okay,
Horseshoes and bocce, right?
that's all I have.
Actually, the thing that everybody wants now is pickleball.
I don't.
Couple of pickleball courts in there, that'd be nice. Everybody, oh God, it's the latest. Down by me in Waretown, they're going crazy. They just built 2 courts.
They're nice because they're compact.
Yeah, and they're cheap, tolerable for us
You
70-year-olds.
don't have to run as much.
You play with wiffle ball, right?
I have no
Something like
further
that,
questions
a
for
little
Mr.
hard
McDonough.
ball, yeah. Any other questions of Mr. McDonough? Any members of the public have any questions of either Mr. McDonough or Mr. McClellan on the testimony given this evening? If you have questions, please come forward. Please come forward. Take a look. Just please restate your name.
Barbara Marsloff. Of course, being right behind this big high monstrosity, my concern is privacy and noise. That's my main 2 concerns. I want to know, like, how many windows are going to be facing me. I'm concerned about people in windows looking right down because we sit way down here. The building is going to be way up here, and then there's no privacy. Like, if you want to go in a pool, swimming pool, all these windows are going to be looking right down. And if they're saying that it's all filled with trees back there, that is not totally the case. There are some trees on part of the property, but the other half of the property is all open. And we had to have a great big tree taken down because of carpenter ants, which opened up another space. So maybe one half of it
Excuse
is all
me.
open.
Your question is, you want to know about the vegetation and the privacy.
And the windows
And
and
the number of
stuff.
windows that's going to be provided to the rear of the property, which faces the rear of your property.
Mhm.
So let's go with an answer now, guys.
Okay, that was discussed at great length at the use variance hearing. At that time, we had presented an exhibit that showed a cross-section through the houses below, the existing vegetation, the back of the applicant's property, and up to the building. And we had shown a line of sight, and we had shown how the application was going to infill with some mature vegetation to supplement what's there. So, and John, what was it, about 150 trees that are
Yes.
proposed? Yeah, about 150 trees, you know, as a result of that approval, which are superimposed on the plan, so they're part of this approval. And then also to infill areas after we do all that, and then infill areas that may still be void. So that would address, you know, the loss of that tree that you've had so that we get filled in.
But
And
unfortunately.
I believe you
with
also agreed,
COVID
the applicant agreed that it would replace any trees that died. You were going to maintain that area.
Yeah, there would be a warranty for the landscaping, yep.
Well, unfortunately with COVID, there were some meetings that were online. And it went in, it wasn't Zoom, it was like, I don't know, WetGo or something I wasn't familiar with. And I
Yeah.
could see all you guys in.
Excuse me,
and
excuse
hear
me.
you.
When was this application approved?
Yeah, it was here, yeah.
I don't think this meeting,
It's 2019, it was.
This was
and-
2000.
And early
this-
2020.
This meeting was never online.
We never had a WebEx.
We never had this meeting
Yeah.
online. I remember you being here, and I think it was, Ms. Schneider and I agreeing with you that we wanted to look at the landscaping.
And we-
They came back, you were here, nothing has changed since that last meeting. Now, with regard to the windows on the back of the...
I have a number.
Okay, you have a number, okay.
Before, John, the use variance condition basically says that the town has two bites of the apple. They've got the landscaping plan up there, we think meets what the discussion was. But even after that, if there's obviously open holes that weren't covered, they have the responsibility to fill them in. So, it's kind of like, if we don't get it right the first time, you're gonna get it right the second time.
But you're not proposing anything different than
Yes, sir.
what we proposed
No.
2 years ago.
Yeah,
I
the-
mean, what we agreed to 2 years ago.
And that's correct. The exhibit that Mr. McDonough is showing, that's literally the same plan that we had before, when we had that cross-section drawing that showed what it would look like from a resident looking up at the building.
And the building is in the same position
Same position.
Same height.
Same facade.
as we agreed with regard to the landscaping. So
Correct.
the landscaping was decided 2 years ago. Okay?
Well, I
Now-
was not aware of it. I only got the letter, like, back in maybe, I don't remember, the end of 20, somewhere in the end of 20. I didn't know anything 2 years ago of anything that was going on. We were not notified, only when we
You were
got
here.
these
You were here
letters.
You
for
were
it,
here.
for the proceeding.
I remember you being here for the meetings.
I was
And you
here
were
for-
the
I
reason
was
that we
here for
carried the case for one more meeting.
I was here for one meeting.
No, I
And then
think you were
after
here.
that, COVID came
think you-
and it was online or whatever.
I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you.
Yeah.
Nora, do you have proof that these meetings were held before, or am I wrong?
Because I remember online when I was on the WebEx thing, she was saying, I
Well,
think
maybe the-
somebody,
maybe
Mrs. Morse,
after
was
that.
trying to get through, and I couldn't figure out how to do it.
We did a meeting online.
You didn't have a
We did
meeting
one
online?
meeting online, yeah.
You did have a meeting online.
COVID started up, the first meeting to get canceled for the COVID outbreak was this meeting.
Was this
The
meeting?
Prior application. So I believe we did do one meeting online.
Well, I mean, we agreed to the landscaping plan at some point, and it was quite a while ago, more than a year ago.
We provided a cross-section showing line of sight to the building. We provided photo simulations of the building superimposed into the backyards.
Were you on that
We did
meeting?
a couple of times because the board was not satisfied with the first set of photo simulations, so we had to do it again.
Were you on that meeting? Did you have an opportunity to see that presentation or not?
I was here one time in person before it went to the web thing, and they said something about they were gonna put little plantings in here. It would take 20 years before you would have
And
any privacy.
that was all changed at the next meeting. And right, Ms.
Yeah,
Schneider,
'cause
because
I
we
was the one
agreed at
who
that point
requested
that
for the
they
maturation.
they were providing us, so unfortunately, unless there is a significant issue, the landscaping part is kind of sealed in wax.
Okay, then I would like to understand the wall that is at the end of the property there goes down like about 10 feet. So if this is, say, where the fence thing is, that space down there is like 10 feet. And then, there's the fence.
Do you understand what she's?
You have to, because Mr. Kaplan brought that up during that.
Can you Can you, explain that?
Mr. Chairman, if I can take it?
Yes, go
And
ahead.
I'll also say, I'm under oath, I've only been questioned in person on the landscaping. I was
Yeah.
never questioned virtually, and
All right, then I made a mistake.
Yeah,
know that-
I
know
think
that
so
you're-
too.
Jeez.
I think so too. I don't ever remember landscaping.
And I remember.
I remember sitting here and
Yeah, me
approving
too.
that
Me too.
application
And
in this seat.
Mr. Kaplan
Must
also,
have been the
in
resolution.
regards to the wall issue that she brings up, Mr. Kaplan was very vocal about that.
I thought the approval was February 2020, which would have been a month before COVID.
Right.
Yes. That's my.
That sounds very,
Yep.
yeah,
Yes,
that,
February
I,
2nd to be
that,
precise.
that, there, I remember because we had a question about the landscaping that you brought up. They came back with us, and I don't remember whether you were here or not. And Ms. Schneider and I, who had issues with the first time, and I remember sitting here and looking at her as we both agreed that the plan was
And Mr.
changed.
Kaplan too, I think.
Mr. Kaplan,
Yeah.
He was worried about
The wall.
small trees and how
But
long it
also
would
the
take to
wall
grow.
that she's speaking of, he was concerned about that.
Now, can you explain, I don't remember
Sure.
the wall. Tell me
So-
about the wall.
If you remember the site, the back of the building now is a service court. That's where all the loading takes place. You have dumpsters back there. There is a drop-off from the site to the woodland. It's a little bit deeper than this dais here. But if you're on the shopping center side, it's 8 feet, 8 feet, 10 feet.
It goes from like 6 to 8 down to, I think, your testimony was 2 or 3.
Yeah, my recollection was like 2 or 3 feet at this end, it was about 8 feet down this end, and it just sort of tapered
Right,
as you went across.
but it is a drop-off. It is a drop-off from the site to your home.
Right.
So-
I'm at the highest part of the wall, so I'm dropped down more than most of them are.
Right.
So you have more blockage by the wall. You have more,
Well,
what's the word I'm looking
Yeah.
for?
Well, my recollection was, and to this person's point, that, and we talked about this, the concern is that if the planting surface is 8 feet lower than the wall, they have to be more substantial.
Right.
And that was the gist of the last exhibit. We showed, I remember showing the line of sight and how tall the trees had to be to fully block the building. My recollection was is the trees maturely had to be 40 to 60 feet. So, we couldn't plant 24-inch shrubs and expect that to do any good.
We also solved the problem by planting the trees on our property, closer to her property.
Yep.
That's exactly right. That's where I was going to go. We specifically on our plan showed a row of evergreens with sensitivity to where that house was on the closest point to the home. So the blockage is not only the trees behind, but the trees right on your property line as well.
And you increase the height of those trees.
Yes, we did.
Yeah,
We're filling the voids. A pool of 150 plants are committed by this applicant to augment that, where the gaps are now.
Plus some
It would
infill.
have to be 40 feet high before it would do any good.
Well, we did line of sight angles to show that the plants that are proposed will block the visibility of those.
Unless they can maybe make some kind of a berm there and then plant them so they would be at least as high as possible.
Again, the commitment is there, the pool of plants the commitment is there. Again, with the site-specific condition that this will be evaluated in the field as to the optimum locations.
And the town's arborer also reviewed the plan and approved it, I believe?
Yes,
Had it-
Forrester.
He gets final sign-off.
And just to answer the question, approximately 40 windows on each wing, but bear in mind, it's an office transitional zone. I'm in the buildings over at Gibraltar Drive. It's a whole ribbon, 3 levels of ribbons of windows that wrap around, so windows are contemplated there under the zone plan.
Yeah, well, then there's no privacy there.
But there could be office windows there.
A complete ribbon of windows. It's only
You're
4.
getting,
It's much less windows.
residential application is much less intense than what could potentially be there in terms of commercial development. That's what you have to understand. Yeah, there's gonna be windows there, but there could potentially be a lot more windows with a different use.
Well, the building that's there right now, there's hardly any windows.
Can I ask a question? When you bought your house, was there a commercial development there?
The building was there. but it's
Okay.
mostly cement, there's hardly any windows.
Was the building there when you bought a piece of property that bordered on a commercial piece of property, correct?
Yes.
You
but
didn't-
can hardly
your house
tell it's
wasn't
there
built-
At the time.
Excuse me?
You can hardly tell it's there at the time, because there's hardly any windows and it just blends in. But this is gonna be totally different building, and much higher.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I'd rather have residential behind me than a commercial building, because a commercial building attracts potential rodents, trucks back and forth. You're getting the better of and I'm not trying to testify for the applicant, but I'm trying to get you, hopefully understand, unless these guys want to do it.
Well, that goes towards the use argument as well. One of the nice things about this application is taking that service area away. It's taking the dumpsters away, it's taking the loading areas. I'm sure there's some sound and some noise back there, presently.
Look at all those apartments, there's still gonna be noise and people and.
There's not going to be a service area back there. Yes, there will be the sound of human voices, yes.
Any other members of the public have any questions of these witnesses on the testimony given? I hear none, see none.
I have two other witnesses if the board has any questions. Mr. Kittimer, our architect, and Mr. Steiger, our traffic expert. We brought them out just in case anyone had any questions. Their testimony really isn't needed here because we're talking about the site plan.
So
unless there
the
are
traffic, all the traffic issues that we discussed at the last meeting haven't changed?
Not at all.
Route 10 is still as busy as it was. Is that correct? Correct, Mr. Steiger?
No. Nobody on it now.
Unless there are any other questions, that concludes our direct presentation.
Let's just, no significant changes from the architectural side.
No changes at all.
Anybody have any problems with us not hearing that testimony? Any additional testimony?
They don't even need a simple majority.
You know, we only have 5 people.
This is a site plan.
I'm just, okay. You're done?
That ends our direct testimony.
And considering that couple just left, I don't think there's gonna be any objectors. Any members of the public who wish to speak in objections to this application, in support of this application? I hear none, see none. Do we need to go into conference, or are we happy with the?
No need,
Maybe, because we don't do a lot of site plans, although we do them with the variances, but do them by themselves. Is there any we need to be concerned about that we haven't already brought up?
I'm gonna defer to Mr. Chadwick.
I thought you might.
I would just act on it and then authorize Pete and myself to develop the conditions. We know what they are, pretty much.
Yeah,
And if you don't think it's there, read the resolution and add something if you have to. That's fine.
Okay, do I have a volunteer to frame a resolution? I'm sorry. Frame a resolution authorizing the attorney to. And professionals.
I
know
may
you
have-
want to do this by yourself.
I make the motion to, I make the motion to make a resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? I almost called you Harriet. Nora, please call the roll.
Oh, God.
Jesus.
Get up
How
and
many
go
years
over
has
there.
it been? Oh, boy. You know what it is? I see Mr. McDonough, I see Mr. Steiger, I see Mr. McClellan. I'm living 5 years ago, what can I say?
What can you say, Harriet?
You don't want to know what she was going to
You
say.
better leave really fast.
I get a kick out of when Mr. King asks, Mr. McDonough if he's been qualified before this board. I think the only person that's been at more meetings in the last 30 years, besides me, has been Mr. McDonough.
Bob and Joe.
Berkowitz,
Yes.
Jaskowitz, Ready,
Yes.
Snyder. Yes. Willen,
Yes.
Hurricane.
Yes. Okay, result is the motion passes for a resolution to be drawn up for the site plan.
And it won't be ready in 2 weeks.
Thank you, everyone. Have a nice day.
Yes, I can leave all these papers. You know, it would be great if we could get electronic monitors. You realize how many, motion to adjourn? All in favor?
I think every board member, because they work hard enough, should each get on.
You know, I want a 24-inch screen so that I can see the plans right here.
A lot of
And you
boards
could-
require that.
You could do it. You make a
A lot of them
one-time,
have smart.
you make a one